All right, and we're live. I think we're always at that awkward in-between stage where the chat hasn't caught up with it yet, so we don't know if we're actually live and people can hear us. But I always like to assume that it worked okay. So, everyone, it's the Drinker here, and I'm here for happy hour number 27, where we're going to be talking about the Disney movie Moana. And damn, this is a pairing that I never expected to be discussing a movie like this. I'm joined tonight by Sargon of Akkad himself. And thank you very much for coming on the stream tonight, man. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Like I've said this many a time, but I watch your videos all the time, so I'm really thrilled to be talking to you. To be honest, especially about a film like this, I know that this is a kind of unusual choice that you probably wouldn't have expected from me, but I love this film and I really want to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. When we were discussing possibilities to review, I expected some hard-hitting political drama or some medieval epic from you. Your suggestion, and then you came out with Moana, and my first thought was like, "Damn, Sargon's lost his mind." But then, yeah, you said, give it a chance, and I think there's some interesting things to discuss. And so I'd never seen it before, so I went and watched it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good film, a good. Honest, sort of old-fashioned almost movie that has a nice moral message to it, and it was an interesting one to look at. So I think it was actually a good suggestion, man. What's if you don't mind me asking for the people in chat, like what made you think of it?
Honestly, I don't really know. Like, it was the fact that my kids watch it fairly often, I guess, which is good because they've got a Disney streaming service. But it's been one of those films that I've wanted to do like a video breakdown on or something at some point, because there are loads of small things in it that I think add up to make it kind of an enchanting story in a lot of ways. And like, it's got a bunch of features that are heavily politicized now that are done in a really good way. And I find it interesting how, like, sorry to talk about anything political, but sort of like, woman of color, strong female protagonist and all that. It has all of these things, and it's not like, she doesn't have like a romantic relationship or anything. So it's like, right, this should be a great feminist film, but you never hear like, anyone talking about it. And it's a real shame because it's a really great film. And so I thought it'd be worth bringing some attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that did kind of jump out to me about this film is like they do a good job of building up Moana as a character. They actually put her through a lot of struggles and difficulties, and she has to rise to the challenge, and she fails on occasion, and she needs help, and she needs a bit of coaching to make herself stronger and better over the course of the movie. And it's almost like that's a forgotten art, the idea that you can develop characters and put them through struggles to make them better people by the end. It's something that you definitely miss out on a lot of films nowadays that try to do this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of The Last Jedi like everyone else. Like, is Moana
Yeah.
a Mary Sue, is the question. And the answer is no. She fails at loads of stuff.
Yeah.
Like when Maui traps her in the cave and she has to climb out, and she tries to jump onto the boat and just splashes straight into the water, and then hair whips in her face, and she's the butt of the joke. And it's like, oh my god, a woman's allowed to be the butt of the joke. But the thing is, it adds to her character, the fact that she has to overcome these things, and it's never cast into doubt. And she's not a Mary Sue, she has to learn things as she goes, and you see her learning things. So right, okay, this is a great character, female, male, doesn't matter. This would be a good character no matter the characteristics, and that's, I think, one of the most important parts about it. It's a really great example to young ladies, to be honest, of what to be like in your personality, frankly. And feminists are like, we're never going to talk about this. Sorry, that's gone. So, never mind.
Yeah. It's the same when she's she's trying to leave her island for the first time, and she has to get beyond the reef, which is at the perimeter of their island, and the waves crash over it, which makes it a very difficult passage to make. And the first time she attempts it, her boat gets wrecked and she's washed ashore. She almost drowns. Again, it's a sign of failure because she wasn't ready for that kind of challenge yet. And it's just, she has to learn from that. She has to get advice from her elders. And become a stronger, more capable person. And it's a theme that's carried on throughout the film. And I think it's interesting as well because you get the character of Maui, who is a demigod, and he's not a romantic interest, but he's almost like a male sidekick for her. But he has his own like pretty interesting character arc in the movie. but the movie never belittles him, and it never makes him useless in comparison to Moana. They're very much a team, and they have their own strengths and weaknesses, and they learn things from each other over the course of the film. So again, it's good old-fashioned character development that just it never gets done nowadays, and it's so nice to see a Disney movie that's relatively new that actually bothers to do this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things about Maui is that he doesn't overshadow Moana. Because you'd think, okay, well, he's a demigod. I mean, he's going to be able to do everything that she can't do. But incidentally, it's not. And in the end, he comes back to save her. But Disney movie, obviously. But she has to overcome the challenges, and he's one of the challenges she has to overcome. He's a pain in the ass. He's constantly either getting in the way or disappointing her or trying to get rid of her. So it's a very interesting, and because there's absolutely no romantic interest or relationship between them, because Maui isn't a human and she's on a mission, it means that they have to talk about something other than being male or female. And so what they're talking about is their place in the story and the grand narrative. You're going to restore the heart of Te Fiti and I'm going to sail you there. So, okay, great. We've got a really good motivation, a reason that Maui is kind of forced into the journey and, why they have to work together. And it's well, this is really decent. I can't believe it. Disney in 2016. Where did this go?
I know. But how much more likable does the character become, of Moana, because of this stuff that she has to do? She's got an actual personality. And when you see her fail, you want her to pick herself up and try again and succeed. It's not hard to create a likable female protagonist, but it's so many companies are afraid to do it because they don't want to show them fail at anything. And the result is you don't like them then because there's nothing challenges them.
Yeah, and at no point is Moana a stuck-up brat. Yeah, and that's, I think, just a good positive trait in a character you want me to like, male or female, doesn't matter who they are. At no point is she prissy or entitled or and she doesn't get everything too easily or anything like this. And so you end up really empathizing with the position she's in because she's if you start at the beginning with her place as the chieftain's daughter, so the princess, and the sort of oppressive nature of the expectations that are placed on her from a very young age, I can see you can very easily empathize with the desire to go and explore the unknown, right? Because she's oh God, everything's all on me and my entire life plan is basically plotted out, and she wants a heroic adventure to go on, and thankfully the story provides her with one, because all the animals and the fish are dying, and they can't eat the coconuts and things like this, so they have to go and restore the heart of Te Fiti. But there's a sort of duality to the island and the home life that I think is actually really interesting and something that maybe millennials want to start thinking about. Because one of the things about millennials that people seem to notice is they're very nihilistic. So they don't have a purpose. And that's awful. I think it's actually kind of awful for people to wake up every day and go, look, there's just no reason why I'm here and I may as well just die tomorrow because, what difference does it make? The universe is a cold, empty place and no one cares. That's a horrible, horrible position to be in. And so what Moana actually does is kind of answer that question in the village that the islanders live on. And you hear it in the first song where it's talking about the island gives them everything they need and they find meaning in the communities and the relations between the people on the island, and Moana has her place, a proper place for her on the island as the daughter of the chieftain, and everyone's she's doing a great job, she's really good, she's working really hard. And so it's very homely. It's very homely. It feels very wholesome. But at the same time, you could see from the perspective of a 15-year-old girl, be oh, look, I want to go and explore the world. I want to get out and do something. So you can feel not only the sort of warmth of it, but also the sort of oppressive nature of it that's always around her. And it gives the character a really good and understandable, relatable motivation to get out and go on the quest. So none of it feels artificial or forced, but it's also one of those. So I think you could relate that back to sort of young people now, where they're they might be in some quite rural area or in a small town or something like that. And so everyone knows each other, and there's an expectation that they might join their father's business or parents' business or whatever it is. And they want to go to a big city, they want to get out and explore the world. And it's yeah, you can, and you probably will, but the aim isn't to forever spend your life on the adventure. The aim is to eventually come back with the skills that you learn and put them to use for the service of the people that you love. And that's basically what Moana essentially learns throughout the film. I just think that's really wholesome.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a trope in Disney movies, particularly when you've got princesses, where it's the yearning for adventure. And the yearning to broaden their horizons. If you look at like a lot of these older films, like Princess Jasmine from Aladdin,
Yeah,
she is the daughter of a sultan, but and by any standard of measure, she's got this lovely, comfortable life where she's going to be living in a palace and waiting on hand and foot. But she yearns to get out into the world and see more of the real world than just what she's been trapped in, like the gilded cage kind of problem.
mm,
And it's the same with I don't know, Belle from Beauty and the Beast. Again, she lives in this little village in France, and she even has a song about how every day is just the same, and they just go through the same routine. And like she wants to see more, she wants to learn more, and that's a trait that you see in a lot of Disney movies. The princess who wants to escape her existence and move somewhere else to find more adventure in the world.
yeah,
And you establish that with Moana in a very real sense because she's trapped on an island. And
yeah,
as you say, the customs that they have, all their culture is based around we have to stay here, it's safe, we don't venture beyond the reef because it's dangerous out there. This is our existence. And not many people question that, or they don't seem to. But Moana keeps fighting against it and she wants to escape. So, on the one
I,
hand, she wants to do it anyway, but events of the film kind of conspire to make it an
yeah.
essential thing that she has to do later.
Yeah, but I think what's interesting about Moana is the the love of the village life is still a part of the character. You know, at no point does she start like hating or resenting the village. She's just got this other impulse to go out and explore. You know, and I just think that's very because I think that there's a great deal of resentment or like I don't know how to describe it, like kind of looking down upon the idea of like small town life from people who, when they're young, move to big cities. And I think that's kind of misplaced because I think that the real quality of life is in human relationships, if you think about it. And like the people who are living in these small towns don't fall into nihilistic patterns where they think life is meaningless because they find meaning in the relations. You know, in the relationships they have with just the other people in their area, and these become sort of textured. You know what the guy who delivers the mail is like. If he delivers your mail every day for 20 years, you talk to him. Learn about his problems and his interesting foibles, and the whole area around you builds up a kind of human overlay, sort of a texture upon it, in which you are familiar with those people and what's going to happen. And so it gives the area that you're in a kind of sense of reality that a stranger can't get, and then it becomes a special particular thing to that place. And that is something that I think it comes out in Moana and is respected. Whereas I think a lot of young people tend to move to a city, adopt a kind of different way of viewing the world, and forget that this kind of texture that people put on the world around them in these small towns is nice and it's good, and it makes it reassuring and lovable and comfortable, and I don't know why I'm going this way with this, but it's just always something that's been in my mind about it, and I don't feel I've adequately been able to say it before for some reason.
No, no. And for me, I think people find meaning in responsibility because that gives you a
Mm,
purpose. So, like for most people, you spend your teens and your 20s partying and having fun, and that's great. But like eventually, most people are going to settle down. They're going to have like a job, they have a house, they have a family, and these are all things that become responsibilities that you have to maintain, you have to work on. But it gives your life a meaning because you're fighting for them,
mm,
and that's I guess what you can end up missing out on if you don't do any of that stuff. If you're still in your 30s and 40s and you don't have anyone around you that kind of need you, if you're living in a rented apartment, you don't have kids, a wife, anything like that, what are you responsible for? What's your meaning? What do you do day to
yeah,
day? You're just literally living for the next next paycheck to spend it on stuff that you don't really need. And I think that's where probably a lot of people, I guess, now can fall into that trap. Everything just ends up becoming very meaningless because there's no one who depends on you, and there's no reward for anything you do.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I think this is why a lot of millennials tend to fall into ideology, because I think it gives them a shared sense of community and like, oh, we're all fighting for a thing, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe, but there are actual real things rather than abstracts to talk about. Real tangible things back in the place that you came from with people who really do actually need your help, and you could fight for an abstract cause that nobody else is really going to recognize unless you become incredibly famous, like a Greta Thunberg or something, or you could become like a local hero in a local area, which I think is nice, and I think it's more achievable for most people as well. But anyway, let's go back to the movie. I'm kind of getting off topic, aren't I?
Oh yeah, we're talking about Moana, aren't we?
So yeah, okay. So like one of the things I absolutely adore about this film, and it's consistent through the whole way through. The graphics, it's entirely animated. It's a beautiful movie, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely stood out for me. Like, the water effects, like the animation is incredible throughout the film. Like the water effects look great. Like when characters get their hair wet and they're moving their heads around and their hair's flying around, it looks just photorealistic. It's brilliant. The amount of work that's gone into all of that. And these kind of CGI effects have gotten to the point where they're great. Obviously they're cartoonish. They're in that middle ground between like looking super realistic and looking just hand drawn, but they work perfect for what they are. And like the movie visually looks fantastic. And the characters all just look likable in their own way. Like Maui looks great. He's got the big muscle stuff, but he's got the kind of like he's a big sort of big lad, with all his tattoos and everything. Moana looks great. Like they've got a lot of personality to them. So yeah. I think it's a great movie to look at. Just for people watching in chat as well. Like I know that obviously super chats will come in as we're chatting here. We tend to leave them just more towards the end, so we don't keep stopping and starting. But everything that comes through will get addressed. Don't worry. But yeah, for people who haven't seen the film, just the general setup is that you get a little prologue where the sort of goddess of the islands, or the goddess of the sea. What's her name again? I can't remember.
Hang on, let me just. I'm terrible with foreign names. Let me get it up.
Yeah.
Right. So the goddess, is it Tekar? Tekar.
I think that's the evil. The evil one.
That's the evil one. Tefiti.
Tefiti, yeah. So she's like the goddess of nature. She's like represents Mother Nature, and she's got this little jewel that basically brings forth life to the world, and it's stolen by a demigod named Maui. Yeah. And he takes away, and it causes like a blight upon the world, and he ends up losing that gem. And his magical hook that allows him to transform into different animals and stuff in a battle with Taka, which is like this big lava demon thing. And so that's the legend that drives the start of this story. So it's 1,000 years ago, and the result is now Moana and her people, they live on a small island in the Pacific. They're isolated. They don't venture beyond the island, and they got very strict rules about it, and they've maintained that tradition for generation upon generation. And Moana is going to be the next leader when the current one passes away, I guess. So she's been training for this her whole life. And like any kid, she wants to push the boundaries and she wants to explore the world, but her father keeps telling her that she can't. And so that becomes her conflict as she's growing up. She wants to move beyond the island and see the rest of the world, but she's not allowed to. And it's only when
her dad, it's worth noting that her dad lost his friend to the sea, didn't he? His friend drowned. So her dad is particularly
so he's not
overbearing.
Yes, but it's good because there's a reason why he feels that way. He's not just dogmatic. He's not just like, well, this is the tradition that was passed down to me, so I'm going to make you do it as well. He was once like Moana. He wanted to venture out into the world, and he tried it, and it didn't work, and he lost his friend in the process. So he's got a very real emotional reason to stop her because he doesn't want to lose her
Hmm.
as well. So again, the movie gives it does a good job of fleshing out the motivations for each of the characters. There's a reason why each person feels and acts the way they do, and it's not just prejudice. There's an actual experience behind it, which again is just
Yeah,
good writing.
they feel realistic, and what's interesting is that it's not a realistic story in any way, shape, or form. It's a very mythical story, and it's even in the structure of the story. Like the ocean makes things happen, the ocean spirit, so you get the water blob sort of coming up and manipulating things. Like it's all contrivances and conveniences, but because of the kind of story that's being told, none of that seems to matter. You don't feel that that's intruding on the progress of the plot or anything, because it's not about that. It's about what the characters, like you say, how authentic they feel and the motivations they have for doing what they're doing. And like you were saying, she wants to escape, and it happens that she's given a reason because Maui 1,000 years ago had stolen the heart of Tefiti, which is that jewel, and it was causing like a black rot to spread across the world. And so the fish nets aren't producing fish, and the coconuts are all like rotten or something, and like powdery, so they can't eat those. And so it's like, right, and at one point Moana's like, the father's like, oh, you can't go beyond the reef, and she's like, yeah, well, that was a rule when we had fish. And it's like, that's a very good point. You don't have any fish now, you are going to have to go beyond that reef and figure out what the problem is. But yeah, so yeah, really really like the setup, even though the way the story's told, even though it's a myth, a big mythological hero story, but that's not the point, is it?
Yeah. So she tries to leave initially on a boat and fails because the waves crash over a reef right at the edge of the island, and it capsizes her boat and almost kills her in the process. And she gets washed ashore. But it's when she meets with her grandmother, who's kind of like the village person, who she down by the shore and stuff, and it's her who explains, like, look, there's your father was once like you, and there's a thing I need to show you. And so she takes her to a cave where she finds all these giant boats that her people originally used to get to that island. And you find out that they were once a race of explorers. So they didn't live on one specific island. I think they just kept moving from place to place because they were curious to see what was out there. And you find out that they stopped doing that because of this blight that was spreading. I think it caused, as she describes it caused monsters to rise up from the deep and attack them. So it became more and more dangerous to venture out. So they just decided, no, we're not doing this anymore. So they hid away their boats, and they established this culture of just staying on the island and staying safe. And so it then gives Moana almost like a boost to know that her people were once travelers who journeyed on the ocean. And it's when her grandmother also explains what she needs to do. She gives her quest. She has to journey out and find Maui, the demigod who stole this jewel in the first place, and get him to return across the ocean so that he can return it to its natural resting place. And that will end the blight, and it will restore life to her world. So that is like her epic quest that she has to go on.
Yeah, it's probably like Lord of the Rings epic as well. Look, the entire world's going to be destroyed if you don't do this. So you've got to go do it. So it's pretty epic. But
Yeah.
the meeting of Maui when she crashes on his island is great. I think the whole thing is just really really great because Maui is just an asshole. He's such a prick.
Yeah.
It's like, thanks for everything, Maui. You twat.
Yeah, because he's an interesting character, isn't he? Because I think the script implies that he's responsible for a lot of the discoveries of humanity. He discovered fire, he discovered agriculture and stuff, and he taught all of that to humankind. And that's his purpose almost. He finds knowledge and he gives it to humanity.
He's the Prometheus of the story.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question then, because you ultimately find out he stole this jewel that's causing this blight. But did he really have the free will to do that, or was he just compelled to do it because he's a demigod and that's like his purpose? You don't quite know. So he's an interesting character.
if I were to put money on it, I would imagine it's probably Maui being self-centered. Because the point of him is he's a very self-centered character, and by the end of it, Moana has taught him to be less self-centered, which is nice. It's an
Yeah,
important lesson for people to learn. Don't be so selfish. Your actions have consequences.
yeah,
But yeah, the interesting thing about Moana as a character is the only real sort of virtue that we see, or the particular skill that she has, is her agility. I was thinking about this the other day. Like the first time we see it is when she's on the island and she just jumps down from like the top of a hut or something, and then we see it when she's on the island with Maui and she climbs up out of the cave that he traps her in as he steals her boat. Because what a dick! And then
he's happy to leave her in that cave the rest of her life. By the way, like he's sailing away, just happy as anything.
yeah, it's a lovely cave. She'll enjoy herself in there. But yeah, and he kind of enchants her into it as well by singing this song and getting her all distracted, and then just poof, right, trapped in a cave. Bye, I'm taking it. So it's very, very malevolent, really, if you think about it. And it's only because she's so athletic that she manages to get her way out and climb through the sort of hole in the top. And so and if it wasn't for the ocean constantly putting her back on the boat, because Maui basically when she tries to get on the boat as Maui's sailing away, misses, hits the ocean and just falls in. But then the ocean dumps her on the boat, and Maui's like, huh, and then just throws her into the ocean again. And the ocean dumps her on the boat, and he's like, no. And then eventually he's like, right, okay, clearly I can't get rid of you. And then they have to start talking and have a relationship. And this is what I mean about the sort of conveniences of the mythic plot. But yeah, but then they have to figure things out, don't they?
Yeah, and what's interesting is she can't physically overpower him.
Yes.
So she can't force him to do what she wants. And under normal circumstances, he could just throw her off the boat and sail away, and there'd be nothing she could do about it. But the ocean is helping her out in this instance, so that she keeps coming back onto it. And it's only persistence and her ability to argue with him that wins him over. Which is interesting, because you would normally get movies like this if this was made now. She would beat him up or something, and she would force him to do what she needs him to do. Yeah. Whereas it recognizes, no, he's a demigod and he's like a million times stronger than she is. She can't force him to do anything. She has to somehow reason with him and eventually win him over, and that's what she does. And again, it's an important thing to note about the character is her persistence. Even when she's got physical limitations, she can somehow still prevail. Again, it's a good bit of writing, and it recognizes the difference between them.
Absolutely, and it's the reason that Maui starts to really take her seriously is because she doesn't back down to him being totally condescending to her as a mortal. She keeps addressing herself by her title to him, saying, "No, you are going to take me to Te Fiti so I can return the heart." And Maui's terrified of the heart because to him this is there's just a little gem, but he's like, "Oh God, this has caused me so much trouble." But when she eventually persuades him to go and do it, he's like, "Right, okay, well, we've got to go find my fish hook," and that's in the realm of monsters where Tomatoa, a giant crab, has obviously got it because he collects. Obviously, he's got it. Obviously, why not a giant, gem encrusted crab would have the hook of Maui? Because it's it's a valuable item and it'd be a thing. And it turns out, lo and behold, it's true. But the climb up I found really interesting because Maui's just like, "What are you doing? You're not going to come and because what they've got to do is climb up this enormous hexagonal geological formation, and to get to the top where Maui does a dance to open the thing up and then jump down it into another back into the water in this huge, and it looks really high up thing, and he's just like, "A mortal's never going to do this, don't worry." And then she falls down and then drops into the realm of monsters, and he's like, "Well, she's dead," and then carries on. It's like, what a dick. This guy's such a dick.
Yeah, but, he's very much presented as just a self-absorbed asshole, yes. And he's very much in love with his own legend. I think it's amazing that he hasn't gone insane after being stuck on an island by himself for 1,000 years, but somehow he's okay. But yeah, it brings them into this realm of monsters where they spot the well, you don't even see this giant crab initially. It looks like just a mountain of treasure with his hook at the top of it. And so Maui's plan is like, okay, you go in and distract him, and then I'll steal the hook. And that's kind of what she does. And like the whole mountain of treasure is just like the shell of this crab that then rises up out the ground,
Well,
and starts trying to attack them.
Yeah, and what's interesting between Maui and the crab is that they've fought before, because the crab's like this legendary creature. Mao being a legendary troublemaker, he's obviously gone and fought him before. And Maui pulled one of the crab's legs off. So the crab is not happy with Maui, and they obviously start fighting. And the thing is, the crab defeats Maui. The crab beats him and is trying to eat him until Moana actually saves Maui by painting a shell with bioluminescent green algae or something, making it look like the heart of Te Fiti. And so, distracts the crab, and they manage to escape, which is interesting, and is one of the it's kind of the point at which Maui stops being such a dick and trying to get rid of her, because she's proven herself to have value. I'm actually a capable person who can think for myself and will take action when action is necessary, and that's a respectable quality.
Yeah, very much so. And like, she's not a demigod in that sense, so she is very easily killable. Whereas Maui, I guess, can take a lot more, and he's in less danger. So she's putting everything on the line for this guy to help him out so that she can fulfill her quest. So again, it makes her an interesting character, willing to risk everything for her quest.
Well, yeah,
but
there's no choice though, is there?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like me or the world, basically.
Yeah.
But they do manage to get out of it. The crab is a weird one. Like, he's kind of like not even evil as such. He's just very like self-absorbed almost. He just loves shiny things and glitter and stuff. Like, he just likes collecting things. It's a funny antagonist.
I probably would call him evil though, because he is just going to eat her. So when he catches her, he's just like, I'll sing you a song about myself, and then I'm going to eat you.
Yeah, he's got no qualms about killing innocent people. Put it that way.
But yeah, after they get out, what happens directly after they get out? I can't even remember off the top of my head now. You'd think I'd have had this memorized, wouldn't you?
Well, once they escape, I think Maui can't use his hook properly, because this thing allows him to like transform into anything, like any animal. So he could become an eagle or, a whale or whatever, and it doesn't work for him properly. And so it's like he's lost the knack of using it. And I think that's when they get attacked by coconut pirates, which is really fucking weird.
Well, so but that's a really great, that's a really important point though, right? Maui, the whole film up until this point, from Maui's point of view. So people, if you're not familiar, Google Maui Moana so you can see a picture of him. He is a brick shithouse. He is the biggest man you've ever seen. He is like, arms like tree trunks. He's literally square in his body shape. He's so broad and strong, and he holds this kind of confidence of someone who is built like that. And so through the whole film, it's just nothing but self-confidence, self-confidence, self-confidence. Even when it's, fighting Tamatoa, the crab, he's still self-confident until he realizes he can't operate the hook properly because it's been too long since he last used it. And suddenly it's like a deflation of his personality, because, suddenly it's weakness. He's vulnerable. He looks incompetent, and this is all like new to him. And so Moana persuades him that he can learn to do it again. And, then they carry on. And like you say, they get attacked by these weird coconut things, which I don't really know what the point of that is, but
it's a bonkers little scene, because it's like, they're like living coconuts that can that can attack you. Aye, okay, fine.
Well, are they like small goblin creatures that wear coconuts, or what? Like,
I think so. You can kind of see something behind the coconut, like there's eyes and stuff there, but like I have no idea what they are. I assume it's some kind of like, I imagine it's like some kind of Polynesian legend or something. Like, they're a thing.
Yeah, but the good thing about the scene is it allows Moana to show off her athletic skills, and the fact that she's brave. Maui's doing most of the work fighting these things off, but they capture the heart of Tafiti, take it onto their boats, their massive boat, like fortress boats. And Maui's just like, well, we're not going to be able to get it. They'll just kill us, so we've got to go. And she jumps on and runs around, gets it back, and then athletically leaps off and arrives back on the boat. And Maui's impressed, and so there we go. Good job.
Yeah,
they managed to sink their boats by making them crash.
Yeah, they do. You kind of see them collapsing in the distance, like all this stuff just crumbling into the ocean. But yeah, it kind of proves her worth. But you also get like a kind of a scene with Maui where he explains his origins, because you find out that he was not born a demigod. He was born as a human, and his parents rejected and they abandoned him. And it was the gods who took pity on him and turned him into what he is now. And they gave him this mission to go through the world and discover knowledge that he can give to humanity and stuff. So it's almost like that becomes his purpose. That's what he's designed for. And he's trapped in that. It's an interesting kind of motivation for his...
Yeah, he defines himself by it. And sorry, go on.
No, you're exactly right. That's his whole view on the world, is like what he's managed to steal, the accomplishments he's managed to make like that. And that's how they appear as tattoos that they almost move across his body. And so he's kind of a weird...
Yeah, because like every one of his legendary accomplishments, I don't even think he tattoos them, does he? They appear on his body for him, don't they? By the gods or something.
Yeah.
And so these become like an inescapable record of his life. And there's one really great bit on the boat where Moana's like, oh, we've got to go and return the heart. And he's like, well, have you ever defeated a lava demon? And she's just like, no, have you? And he's like, oh, damn it. Because he hasn't. He got beaten by the lava demon. So it's like, oof, got him. But it's this kind of interplay that makes their relationship really interesting, isn't it?
Well, they each have things that the other person needs. Like, she needs his cooperation to accomplish this mission. In a way, he kind of needs her to give him new purpose in life. And, they both learn things from each other over the course of the movie. You get this great scene where he teaches her how to navigate and sail and learn how to actually use a boat, because she can't really do any of that stuff. She's just flying by the seat of her pants with that. And you get kind of montage where she's actually learning how to do all of these things. She's learning skills that are important through hard work and determination. And again, an important thing for character development, where you show someone actually working at it to get better at what they do.
Take note, Star Wars writers. Just saying.
Yeah.
It's not even difficult. It's in almost every Disney film ever, and yet you can't do this with your Mary Sues. I don't know why. Sorry, I'm so sick of Star Wars. It's the easiest.
Yeah, I'm much the same. But it's so easy with Ryan. You give a character a problem and you make it difficult for them to overcome that problem. Straight away, your audience empathizes with them. You kind of want them to succeed, unless they're like ridiculously evil or something. You want a character to do well, and so it's not difficult. It's like writers nowadays are afraid to put their characters through that, especially if their character's female, because they don't want to show them having weakness.
But ironically, that's so condescending, isn't it? Like, I can't even imagine why I would care about it. Like, if they were like, oh, well, we've made a male character who is a Gary Stew or whatever the ER said the alternative is. Like, why would I care about a male character who never fails at anything and never has to accomplish anything, never learns anything, never it suffers or endures or shows the willpower to get through and forge ahead? Why would I care about that character? I would hate that character. Like, if I was a woman and they were like, hey, look at this woman who's representing you, I'd be like, she's awful. Thank you.
Well, and it's... sorry, just give me 1 second here. So when you have characters like that, that go through these kind of struggles, the absence of it just it leaves this kind of void in the narrative where you're waiting for something to happen, and it doesn't, and you're unsatisfied because you don't understand why you're meant to identify with this character. And it was the same with movies like Captain Marvel, where the character is just great at everything anyway, all throughout the film.
Yeah.
She just becomes more and more powerful as it goes on, and if nothing can challenge them, what are you rooting for here? There's no obstacle to overcome here.
Yeah, I just don't see what the connection with the character is supposed to be if they can't fail at all.
And I think characters like this, they used to be about teaching people, especially kids, when it's Disney movies. It taught them lessons about how they can approach life. And the lessons used to be that, if you demonstrate traits like, self-sacrifice, thinking of other people, determination, resilience, all of these important qualities, they're probably going to serve you well in life generally. They're important things to have. But what we seem to be teaching people now is you're perfect the way you are. Just the world just needs to bend around you and to your will and just accept you as you are. And that's absolutely not how life works. And if people try and take those lessons and apply them to their day-to-day life, they are going to be seriously disappointed by what happens.
Yes. And interestingly, that's why Maui is such an unlikable guy at the beginning, because he's such a dick, because he thinks that, he thinks everyone on Earth loves him. He thinks that he can do anything, go anywhere, and treat anyone the way he wants to treat them, which in the case of Moana is just trapping her in a cave. He's exactly that character. Until Moana has, as you said, the sort of persuasive experience with him, and eventually has to persuade him, look, you have to do something to earn the respect and love of people so they'll call you a hero. You have to go and do something, and fixing the problem you created might be a good one. That might be something. And it's fair, Can't argue with that.
And it's... The balance of this movie is interesting, right? Because there's not a specific antagonist as such. Even Takar, who you think is like this great evil that has to be overcome, you find out, obviously, later in the movie that she isn't. And the closest you really get to any kind of antagonist is Maui himself. But he isn't really. Like, he has a reason for doing the things he does. Like, he's compelled to do it. And he ends up expressing regret, and he makes amends for the things that he's done. So it's a funny sort of movie. And it kind of proves the point that you don't need an evil character as such in a film to make it work. You just need an obstacle of some sort to overcome. And the message of this movie ultimately is like, well, horrible things happening to people or taking things away from people can turn them into monsters, but they're not like that to begin with. They're kind of products of what they experience.
Yeah, there's no identifiable villain with like a malevolent desire to hurt everyone, and that's like you said, that is really unusual, isn't it? Thinking especially in like Marvel terms, where every villain is instantly identifiable. It gives us a remarkable depth because, like you say, its circumstances are conspiring, and ultimately you can say it's Maui's fault, but Maui wasn't trying to destroy the world, he wasn't trying to doom the world. He was being an inquisitive trickster god because that's what he was, and he didn't have a choice but to be that because that's what the gods made of him. And so he had done something irresponsible, but he wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was just like, ooh, shiny gem, I'm gonna take it because I can. And so really it's kind of a lesson on selfishness and the effect that it has on other people. And like you say, that Tekar, the big lava monster, is not really the antagonist. It's kind of like the guardian of the island, where they have to return the heart. But that's not someone who's actively trying to hurt people.
I always took it as like almost some kind of parable for like Mother Nature, because that's what the goddess in this represents, is like nature, and the idea that you take too much from the environment around you, you harvest too many resources, and you create too much destruction. What you're going to reap from that is destruction in return, and that's what Takar is. It's like a manifestation of that. This big destructive monster of fire and lava and death. That's what like your world can become if you take too much from it, and you don't have respect for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's
And
a great point. And one thing I noticed about it is it's not heavy-handed with that message either. Because I mean that's a true statement. Everyone knows. Look, who wants to live in a polluted world? I don't want to live in a polluted world. But I also don't really want to have anything to do with environmental activists because they're really embarrassing and cringe. And so it's like, right,
yeah,
so but it's
can we
still
just like. Can we just make Elon Musk like president of the universe or something, and just he just fix everything?
Yeah. I mean, on the plus side, like the Germans have just said, oh, maybe nuclear power isn't so bad. So there is hope. But like you are right with the heart and stuff. It is obviously about nature and how nature is a nice and good thing. And agreed, it is a nice and good thing, and we should be, we should not just pollute. I mean, it sounds remedial, but yeah, I mean that's fair. That's a fair message, and it's in the movie, so okay, fine. But it's like I said, it's not heavy-handed, so that's good. But yeah, the when they're actually approaching, so they're trying to return the heart, and they know where they have to go to do it because it's a particular island that's surrounded by another sort of chain of islands, and guarding this chain of islands is Tekar, and it's this giant lava monster that throws big balls of lava at the boat and things like this. And so Moana puts her skills that she's learned, the sailing skills that she learned to use, and she learns them from Maui, of course. One of the embarrassing thing for her is, like you said, like she doesn't know how to sail. She's self-taught, she says. And so Maui's kind of like, oh, you pleb. But the ocean forces Maui to teach her. So he does. And then you see her put these skills into practice when she is approaching the sort of gap between the islands and the lava demon comes up. She has a feint and sails to the left and into some mist, and so the lava monster goes on, but in the meantime she's actually turned around and sneaks back, and it's using the sailing skills she's learned, and it's all quite intense, and the lava demon's almost got her, and then Maui returns because she upset Maui slightly before this because Maui got his hook broken, didn't he?
Yeah, so it was damaged. They had a confrontation with Takara already, and he used the hook to protect them, but at the cost of almost destroying it. So it's hanging in there by a thread. One more hit will destroy it. And so this hook is like the most important thing in the world to him. Without that, he can't be who he is, and so he almost defines himself by it. So he's being asked to like sacrifice the most important thing to him in order to protect Moana. And so initially he doesn't want to do it and he leaves. He casts doubt on her. He says that the ocean chose wrong when it chose you. And so it's a moment of crisis for her as a character because she has self-doubt. Again, another hallmark of decent writing where it's like you actually put her through emotional turmoil. She doubts herself. She doubts her place in all of this. Yeah. She doesn't think she can do it. Those are things any normal person would experience when they're put in a situation like this, because it's an incredibly challenging quest that she's been handed. And a normal person would just think, no, I can't do this. No way.
And that's a great point. And I shouldn't have skipped over it, actually. I didn't mean to go ahead. But the point of the thought, I might fail. I mean, I'm just thinking of all of the crap that Hollywood has put out for the last 5 years. At what point do any of those strong female characters feel like the thought goes through their head that I might fail? At no point does it look like Rey thinks that she won't just win. Every point, Rey does everything as if she knows what the outcome's going to be, and I really hate that. It's like totally takes me out of the narrative of the character if the character doesn't act like it's in any danger. Why do I care? The character doesn't care.
There's always with movies. There's always supposed to be that lowest point where the character has lost everything and they doubt themselves. They think that it's always lost and they want to give up. And they have to find some hidden reserve of strength or resilience or determination, whatever it might be, in order to pull themselves up and continue and ultimately win. But again, doing that requires the character to have vulnerability and to show weakness for a moment. It doesn't make the character weak, but it lets them show human emotions like we all experience. We all have setbacks, and it makes us doubt ourselves a little bit. Um, but it's like they're not allowed to show that in characters nowadays, and so you end up with characters that are just bland. They don't go through a journey because they don't experience hardship and doubt and loss,
Yeah, I mean,
because
comparing,
they're scared.
yeah, I mean, comparing them to Rey, like, I remember watching the Star Wars films and just at no point thinking that Rey felt like she was in any danger. You know, at no point did I feel that Rey was like, oh God, I'm about to lose an arm or something. You know, I mean, you probably know them better than me. Can you think of a single point in any of Rey's character on-screen appearances where she looks like she's in danger?
Not a single one. Well, maybe for a split second in the final movie, she's fighting Kylo Ren on the ruins of the Death Star, where there's like ocean waves crashing
Yeah.
over them, and he beats her down a little bit, and it's like, holy shit, Kylo Ren's actually becoming a threat. What's this nonsense? And then Leia just dies and fades into a Force ghost, and he just has a moment of spazzing out, and then she just fucking knifes him right through the gut with her lightsaber.
That's right.
Like an absolute asshole. Because can't have her lose. That was the one and only moment where I thought, oh my god, they almost understand this idea. The villain has to be a threat, and then it's gone in a heartbeat. That's it.
But
That's the only time.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like it should have been. You would have thought that at the beginning of Rey's journey, she would have been. I mean, like the first time she beats Kylo Ren in a fight, it's like, what the hell is going on? You know, this is awful writing, and this should have been saved for the very end. And instead, it seems that it's kind of like almost the other way around. You know, Kylo Ren's almost getting the better of her at the very end of it. So is this Kylo Ren's hero's journey? Is it? You know, because I mean, he wasn't the worst character in the world, I suppose. You know, but I didn't think he wasn't very sympathetic.
Yeah, in that first movie, I had this weird, naive notion of like, oh wow, they're going to do something really clever with this. Like they're going to have Kylo Ren ultimately become the hero, and Rey, who initially seems this virtuous, heroic character, is going to gradually turn to the dark side because she's too powerful. She's got too much given to her too early. I was so trusting and so young and naive at that point, and
I mean,
I
that
was
sounds like a
proven
good
so
story.
wrong.
That sounds like a good story. I would have enjoyed that, you know, because a Fall from Grace story is a great story. You know, okay, Anakin Skywalker could have been done better, but it wasn't that bad, especially in comparison to what we've got now. You know, it would have been a good, at least something interesting to watch. But man, like the whole thing with Star Wars now, I'm just like, why are they bothering? Why does anyone bother? Like what? And then you see this sort of like NPCs in the cinemas, and they're like, oh wow, Star Wars, and I'm like, but what are you getting out of it? You know, is it literally the shiny swords that you're like? I don't understand the Star Wars fandom at all, man.
No, I mean, I go back to movies like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Even that lightsaber fight between Luke and Vader in that final movie, where Luke has been pushed and pushed, and it's when Vader threatens that he's going to turn Leia to the dark side, and when you see Luke break and just give into his absolute rage and fury and hatred, and just pummel Darth Vader to submission. Man, the emotional payoff there is so good because it's so earned, and you can't help get invested in something like that. It's just great writing. It's a culmination of 3 entire movies building up to this. It's really well done. Then you contrast that with Rey and Kylo just mindlessly swinging lightsabers at each other, and I don't even know what either one of them is for. They're just kind of there because the script says they need to have a lightsaber fight. There's nothing, no emotion whatsoever, and that's the difference.
Yeah, and then of course she wins, because of course she wins. Couldn't be anything else. You know, you knew that was going to happen.
Yeah,
but
imagine if he kicked her ass in Force Awakens. In the first movie, imagine if he beat her down and she just barely got out with her life. You would be thinking,
that's what
damn,
you'd expect.
Yeah, you would think, okay, he's a proper badass villain. He's a real antagonist. He's a real threat. She just barely made it out. I support her 100%. I hope she wins next time. It's not hard. It's not hard to make people like a character, but they won't do it.
Yeah, it's really weird, isn't it? But again, I just find it really patronizing. Because if it was aimed at me, I'd be like, I hate this character, and I hate you for thinking I'd like this character.
Yeah.
But
Just
anyway,
yeah, it's like you're so simple-minded. Like just show
yeah,
them win constantly, and they'll clap like
yeah.
mindless seals. That's all we need.
But it's amazing how Rey makes Kylo
Uh,
Ren the underdog. Like, how is the villain who controls an empire and an army the underdog when you two are fighting? It doesn't make any narrative sense at all to me.
yeah, it doesn't. That's the problem. That's where ideology gets in the way of writing, storytelling, and then you end up with garbage like that doesn't work. It doesn't deliver the emotional payoffs that people expect because it can't. It's too constrained. It's like it's like going into a fight with Mike Tyson with both arms tied behind your back. You can't win.
Yeah. Yeah, the outcome is predefined and everyone knows it. And yet we're supposed to go through the motions anyway. So anyway. Right, yeah, so they have a fight with Tekar, kind of. Maui comes back and saves her, and then she puts the heart back, or tries to, and then realizes that Tekar is actually Tafiti in some alternate form because she's lost the heart, and there's this kind of mystical understanding, the ocean parts, and then she goes and puts the heart back, and then end of a Disney movie. So, good stuff.
Yeah, lovely, like flower-filled ending.
Yeah.
The goddess gets her heart back, turns back into an island, everything comes back to life, and Moana needs her people to become explorers again,
Yeah.
which is it's just a nice culmination for the character. Because what's interesting as well, like every leader who becomes the new chief puts a flat stone on this pile at the top of a mountain, and so they pile up on top of each other. Each person does it, and the next person. The thing that she puts down is a shell, a thing that you can't put anything on top of because it'll fall off. Because it shows you like no one's coming back here. They are now moving beyond this island. They're going to become travelers again. And just little touches like that just make a smart movie that I just like it. It teaches you.
Sorry, one of the things is it's fulfilling the end of the hero's journey, isn't it? The hero comes back having solved the problem with the sort of mystical knowledge or whatever, and she imparts it to her people because the people are important. Like, this is the anchor around which the entire story really kind of revolves and should revolve. And again, like millennials, go spend some time in the city, but go home eventually. Those people need your help, and that's what I think the message there is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's finding that balance, I think, between the traditions that she's been taught as part of her culture, but also having that ability to look beyond it and look at the wider world and be ready to have that sense of adventure and openness to like new experiences, new adventures, new possibilities. Because damn, man, like I think as a culture, as a species, we need that. We need new challenges.
Yeah.
We need to broaden our horizons and look to like bigger things. And we don't have enough of it. We're too wrapped up in like talking about microaggressions and arguing about damn movies. Like,
well, I think the important thing is that the problem with like being obsessed with tradition is it becomes stultifying and you forget that the world is changing around you, and so you like Japan and America when the Japanese first encountered Europeans, they really didn't want to have anything to do with the Europeans, but the Europeans had cannons and essentially just forced the Japanese to deal and to trade with them. But it was because of the very, very like hyper traditional and structured, rigid view of the world that the Japanese managed to maintain on their islands that allowed them to do that. You couldn't do that when the world could reach you, but if you're on an island with a nice sea between you and any big problems like the Mongols or something, then you can evolve a culture that is quite rigid and traditional and doesn't look forward; it only looks backwards. But one of the things that I think, Moana is showing this quite well is that the world changes whether you like it or not, and eventually it will come and catch up with you. So you may as well be engaged with the world. Don't think that you can just retreat into tradition and then just sit there forever and nothing will go wrong, because it will.
Yeah, 100%. Like any culture is a living thing that changes and adapts. It's not something that you put in a museum case and preserve exactly as it is forever.
Yeah.
It's literally just the way we do things around here. That what culture is, and so that is subject to change as time goes on, and that's what the film kind of embraces. It's like we were once explorers. That was our culture. We became insulated, and that served us well for a time. But it's now time to broaden out and become explorers again and take on the world. And it's a good message. There's so many aspects of this film that I think are just good, wholesome moral messages for people. The ability to see beyond your limitations, to push the boundaries of what you can do, to work hard, to better yourself, to try harder at things. All those things are good. They're good for life. They'll serve you well. That's what Disney movies used to do. They used to be so good at all of that stuff. And when they remember that on occasion, it's great to see. And it's nice to see that a movie like this, a relatively new one, still embraces it.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying just before we started, like I have a problem with millennial-made cartoons, is that they're laden in irony. Nothing is sincere. Everything is almost kind of embarrassed about the fact that they're making children's cartoons, and so they have to constantly either break the fourth wall or act like the characters are not in any danger, and so they can just be ironic and bored with whatever's happening around them and things like this. And I was thinking back to, because I've got a son, obviously, and I've watched a lot of cartoons with my kids, and I kind of hate them. I really kind of hate them. And I was thinking about the cartoons I watched as a kid, and none of them, like, if you think about like the old 90s X-Men cartoons and things like this, like, they're all very sincere. They're all very in the moment sort of cartoons. It feels like there's a threat. It feels like there's no time to be ironic, because that implies there's a certain barrier of safety from which you can hide and be like, yeah, well, I mean, that might be happening, but here's my ironic commentary. It's like, I don't want these characters to have an ironic commentary. I want them to act like human beings who are in real trouble and have problems and are in danger. And how do they react to it? It gets you involved, doesn't it? And like you say, like the message ends up being wholesome rather than kind of cynical. I think it's a subtle distinction, but I really think it's there.
Yeah, when I was a kid, Thundercats was where it was at, man.
Dude.
They
I love
ass.
it. I used to love Thundercats, man.
Yeah,
Mum such a bizarre villain.
I know, yeah. It just changes into this like big muscle bound, mummy thing. Lionel with his big throbbing sword that goes erect.
And I watched, it was literally like 30 years since as a kid, and then I came back as an adult to watch Thundercats. I couldn't believe how much of a dunce Lion-O is. Like, through the whole thing, he's just an idiot.
It wasn't until I got the backstory to it that I realized, like, he's basically a kid in an adult's body, because I think they were in stasis or something, and it got fucked up, so his body aged, but his mind did, and so, like, he is kind of really naive and thick. But all of that stuff, like, I loved Action Force or G.I. Joe for our American friends.
He-Man.
Yeah, all of those shows. Yeah, He-Man. They were all great. Like, and like you say, they were kind of sincere about what they did. Like, you can write it off as being cheesy or whatever now, but kids don't see that. Kids don't see irony. They don't have to cloak everything in postmodernism. They just enjoy things for what they see in front of them. They want to see virtuous heroes triumphing over horrible villains. That's what you need. There's nothing bad about that.
No, in fact, it's good, because you'll need people who know what to do when someone does something bad. And unfortunately, in the world, there are bad people who will do something bad to you. And like, I kind of feel bad for like the postmodern millennials who can't get into anything sincerely. I kind of feel bad for them, because it's like, it feels like something has been taken away from them, almost. Their ability to honestly and uncompromisingly engage in an emotional way with the stories that they're enjoying or supposed to be enjoying. There seems like there's a barrier there, and it's just like, sorry, I don't know who did this to you, but like, I'm sorry that you can't get into like life in the same way that the characters in the shows that I grew up watching did. And I think that's sad. I think it's just really sad, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you need to have the ability and this is something that like it's harder as you get older, but like to just sometimes enjoy a film or a TV show for what it is, and just
Mm,
not try and see it through that weird postmodern ironic lens or
yeah.
anything. Just see the story that they wanted to tell, and see the kind of heartfelt sincerity that you sometimes get.
Mm,
It's genuinely fun. Like man, I'm trying to think of an example. Like the one that I gave recently was like when I did a review of It's a Wonderful Life over Christmas
hmm
time, right? An ancient movie from like 70, 80 years ago,
Yeah.
but genuinely emotive even now. Like one of those films that at the end it brings a lump to your throat,
Yeah.
because it's sincere. It comes from that different era that's like a more innocent time, but they were just trying to tell a great story, and you
Mm,
can't help but appreciate that. Like if you've got a soul, and you've got the ability to still enjoy entertainment, you can just watch it and get caught up in it and just root for the characters and just love it. Like it's not
yeah.
that hard to do. It's so lifting. It's so good for your soul to do stuff like that.
It's weird, but it's like you've got to, when you're entering into a piece of what I guess we would just call sincere media. The Because I've noticed that millennials and like people of this sort of political persuasion in some ways have a habit of criticizing every premise that they're given, and it's like, look, just accept the base premises of this piece of art, just accept them, and then go from within the container that is the world that you've been shown. Step into it rather than examining it like you're a scientist looking down at a bunch of bugs on a plate or something. Like just step into it and live it. Enjoy it. You can get into it. It's good for you. It's good for the soul.
Yeah, yeah. You need that sometimes. I think
Yeah.
you need media, a TV show, a movie, whatever, that just kind of uplifts you a little
Mm.
bit. Whether it captivates your sense of wonder, or moves you in some way, or excites, whatever it might be. Like sometimes it's good to just give yourself over to that, because that's why it's made. It's there to
Yeah.
entertain you. It's not there to be dissected all the time. Like,
Yeah.
okay, it's my job. Like I'll pick things apart, and I'll point out when things don't work, because there's fundamental building blocks that you kind of need to make it just at least coherent. But yeah, like you need to be able to just enjoy stuff like that, because if you don't have that ability, where's your joy in life? Where's your
Yeah.
fun? What do you get from anything?
Yeah. I mean, I've been studying the idea of stories a lot recently, and one of the best way of looking at them is that stories are actually a way of talking about reality. But it's not talking about reality in an objective scientific way. It's talking about reality in a subjective, personal way, a very human way. Something. It's not unreasonable to view the world from the human perspective, and the human perspective is emotional. It's scary. It's not in full command of all the facts. Sometimes it's mythological and mystical. Sometimes it feels as if the world is conspiring against you. And one of the things that these sort of stories, sort of sincere stories, are trying to tell you is how you need to deal with that. And when you don't have all the answers and things feel confusing, there are certain sort of like virtuous choices and not virtuous choices, and you should choose X rather than Y. There are lessons in it. It's just, it becomes very easy to dismiss all this if you just become suddenly ironic and disengage and be like, "Oh no, it's all stupid. And I don't care about any of this. And this is this, this is that." It's like, yeah, that's not the purpose. You're missing the point.
Well, yeah, I mean, to go back to your Star Wars example, it used to teach that exact thing to you, where
Yeah.
following the light side of the Force was more difficult. It took more time, it took more effort, it took more discipline, to harness that ability. Whereas the dark side of the Force was the quick and easy route. It was all based around emotion, passion, and taking the quick and easy power best, but
Mm.
ultimately creates long-term failure for you, because you don't have that building block of wisdom to see you
Yes.
through. And so the moral lesson there was like, well, the path that's more difficult is the more rewarding one. And that's an important thing for people to learn in life. Like you have to have struggle, you have to have difficulty, because it builds your character, it builds your wisdom over time, and it makes you a better person. If everything's easy for you and it's just handed to you, you become an arrogant, entitled arsehole. And when genuine adversity comes your way, you can't cope with it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And the thing you've got to remember is that you're not perfect. You are in fact not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And I mean, it's all getting into kind of Jordan Peterson territory, but I think he's right on this. You know, you've got to think about being better, and like if you want to and the light side of the Force and dark side of the Force is a great analogy for this, because like the dark side of the Force, like you're saying, it gives you a great deal of power very quickly, and you can change the world very quickly. But you're not making very good decisions, and so you end up making a kind of evil world. Whereas if you follow like the Luke Skywalker path, you change yourself right before you try to change the world. So what does Luke Skywalker do? He submits himself to the discipline of an elder, you know, someone who knows more than him and is, you know, like whacks him with a stick and makes him run around with him on his back and stuff like that, humiliating him, you know. But Luke sticks it out and he learns the lessons and he becomes a better person and ends up creating a better life story for himself than obviously Darth Vader would have done.
Isn't it interesting though, because you used to get this a lot in movies where you would the elder mentor character was wise, and you would do well to listen to that person because they'd been there and done that and they had their experiences to pass on. But it kind of feels like with modern movies, the elder character is mocked almost, and they're shown to be a fraud. And it's almost like you can't believe in that person because what they're telling you is a lie. And so you need to just be yourself. And that is a really interesting thing to base your premise on.
Yeah, isn't Nick Fury the guy with the eye patch? And then you learn how he lost his eye. And it's in no way, it's what, a cat scratched him? Oh, why?
Fucking Flurkin, yeah.
Why do you have to humiliate this otherwise excellent character? Because that's what it is. You know, it's disenchanting the character. You know, because if he'd lost his eye in a battle or something with some epic adversary, that would be great. You know, that would be like, right, okay, then you know that he has learned some lessons. He's an rough old guy. You know, he's going to give you hell, but he's doing it constructively to improve you because he knows you're going to face these kinds of adversaries as you go, and you don't want to end up suffering in the same way that he did. But instead, no, he lost it because he was scratched by a cat. So,
yeah. Well, you know, isn't it interesting? Because if you look to your elders for advice on life or whatever, what sort of mindset are they going to have? They are going to be more set in their ways, conservative, you might say. And so you can absorb lessons from them. But if you mine everything that they might teach you, and just say, nope, these people are frauds, you shouldn't listen to them, you take away that foundational part of your learning. And so what are you left with? You're left with people with no foundation on how they're going to base their lives. And they become just empty vessels that you can change however you want.
Yeah, I mean, imagine I just think that's Moana's... an interesting... Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Because imagine if Moana had this kind of cynical, sort of disenchanting view of her father or her village or her grandmother or something like this, where she ends up losing respect for them. And it's like, but there is a reason to respect your elders. They know things that you don't know. They've been through the human experience. There's a reason. And this, like you said, like making them frauds, I think is a very common trope now. And I do think that's interesting that that's the thing, because it kind of leaves you alone, doesn't it? It severs this bond that you would have had with, like this bond of respect that you would have had with that person, because you as the young person know that, oh, that older person knows something I don't, and therefore they might have something to teach me. You know, if Yoda turned out to be a fraud in Star Wars, then Yoda would not be a popular character at all. You know, like everyone would hate Yoda.
Well, think about this, right? As you grow up, who is it that teaches you how to do stuff? You know, outside of school and that sort of thing, it's your dad or your grandfather. Yeah. You know, they've done this stuff before and they can pass on skills and bits of knowledge to you and stuff. And that becomes kind of a foundation that you can base your identity and your life on. It doesn't define you, but it gives you a starting point. And it's like, well, okay, I can move beyond that because I'm going to gradually form my own experiences. But it's important. And it gives you a sense of continuity. You know, they did that.
Yeah.
They passed these things on to me. I'm going to take stuff from them that I find useful, that's good, and then I'm going to pass that on to the next generation. But if you break that chain,
of security. It gives you a place of security.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're you're late teens, early 20s, and you're just getting out into the world for the first time, it's kind of a scary place because you've got all this freedom, but you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And so you get this kind of baseline to anchor yourself to. That's a useful thing to give you some kind of foundation for your life. If you don't have that, what the hell do you start with?
Well,
It's kind of
you could.
a difficult proposition.
Yeah, I mean it's terrifying, but not only that, you become vulnerable to the sort of predations of people who might want to use you for their own interests. And it makes you kind of vulnerable to that because you haven't actually got a mentor figure who you can, I've been given this proposition by someone and I don't know anything about them really. Is it a good idea? Well, I mean, they're offering you something shiny or whatever it is for whatever contract you're essentially going to be entering into. Is this wise? And a normal person in a sort of like, sort of healthy relationship with the elders around them would say, okay, I'm going to go and ask my dad, he might have some advice for me. What does he think? And they would, because they know that who's looking out for your interests, like you don't, if you move to a city and you're all on your own, and I bet there are so many stories from young people who have moved from small towns to big cities and have been taken advantage of. And I bet this sort of stuff happens all the time in Hollywood. I imagine a lot of the Me Too movement is kind of built on this pattern of behavior where these isolated young ladies are suddenly surrounded by people who are essentially predators and they've got no one who they can guarantee to be looking out for their own interests. But that's what the sort of the grandmother in Moana or, Yoda or whatever, whoever it is, that person's looking out for the interest of you, the character. And so you can trust what they're saying and you don't have to do what they say. You can make your own mistakes, but you at least know they're trying to give you the best advice that they can. Whereas when you're in the big city all on your own and someone comes along and they offer you something, there's going to be a price. That's all I'm saying. There's going to be a price. And better be aware of that.
No, 100%. I just think it's interesting how people, in a way, can be manipulated quite easily once you establish that veneer of authority. Much like the grandparents or the parents or whatever, you can replace that with any person who seems like they know what they're talking about.
Yes.
It was. I always remember when I was at uni and I did. We covered the Milgram experiments where they would get people to electrocute folk in a test chamber, and the idea was that they would have all these scientists there in their big official like white coats saying it's fine, you can just apply these higher and higher voltages to this person if they get the answers wrong, to the point where they would administer fatal doses, and people would do it without question.
And they could hear the people shouting and yelling, couldn't they? They can hear them yelling in the other room, and they're like, "Raise it, please!" And it's like, God.
Yeah, and it was all fake, obviously. Like, the people weren't really being electrocuted, but the participants were made to think that they were doing it, and they would do it without question because they had these very official-looking people telling them that it's okay. This is all part of the experiment, and you're fine to do it. And I just think that's really scary that people would be willing to go to that lengths because someone told them it's okay, and they didn't have a foundation telling them no, that this is your baseline of what's acceptable. And it explains a lot, like, should we say, throughout history. It explains why people are so willing to do bad things when they're told it's okay.
Yeah, the influence of authority can't be overstated, and so it's always useful to know who the trustworthy authority figures are. I mean, do you remember the film Pinocchio? When the boys go to Pleasure Island and the big fat guys have these cigars, and then they turn into jackasses. And I mean, quite a blunt metaphor now, but I think that actually does have some merit to it, to be honest. Just because this guy seems to know what he's doing, you've come to a place where you don't know anyone, and so you latch on to the first authority figure and you do what they say, and look where it leads you. This is not virtue. This is not being a good person. This is not good for you either. There's no long-term gain for you here. This is you indulging in sensual pleasures, but that ain't going to last forever. And then you become a slave essentially to that system. And it's like, did you want that? And you were lured into it. And I think something similar can happen in places like Hollywood and things like this. And I think it's, something to be aware of.
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that, never had any part of any of that, so
me too.
Yeah.
Should we go? For
I imagine chats? I think we probably should. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, though.
No, it's fine. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to refresh the list here because there's a few. Yes, people in chat, we will be addressing super chats. So if you've got anything you want to ask us, then go for it. And I'm sorry if I've ignored chat up to this point, but damn, it was a good discussion. Okay, here we go. So Olatization here says, Critical Drinker talking a Disney animated movie with Sargon of Akkad, possibly the most random thing ever. Like, what the fuck? it is random, and I like it.
I thought it was a good thing to talk about because it's unexpected. So what are we going to be saying? But it's really interesting, isn't it? Like how these things, if you think about them in a certain way, they apply to a lot of things. In a regular person's life, you can really sort of draw real lessons, and that's the point of storytelling. That's why we tell each other these kind of stories.
Yeah, exactly. It inspires you, it sparks your interest, but it also teaches you interest in moral lessons for how you can live your life. And so, that's what Disney used to do so damn well, and they've kind of lost the art now. But movies like this prove that they still have the ability. Also, in person asking you, when are you going to be debating Vosh again?
Well, as soon as Vosh sends me an invite. Just waiting on him.
Fair dude. Yeah. Chuckenhausen says, appreciate your reviews on your second channel. Yes, you need to review the garbage of today for the views, but it's nice to hear your voice be genuinely excited for the masculine movies of old. Yeah, thank you, man. It was a little experiment of mine, but on my second channel, I started doing like older movies that I do, yeah. Critical Drinker After Hours is. So it started off, I would just do my live stream uploads there so it didn't clog up the main channel. But then I hit upon the idea of like, it'd be nice to do smaller, shorter reviews of like older films that maybe wouldn't get that many views on the main channel. So yeah, I've covered a few. Like I did Gran Torino. I've done.
I love that film.
Where Eagles Dare, which is like one of the favorite like war films of my childhood. I fucking love that movie. I did Tremors just the other.
Yeah, no, I didn't even know you had a second channel, but I love Gran Torino, man. Gran Torino is fantastic. Do you mind if I just address some fake news in the chat? Bro, Sargon literally made a video on why you shouldn't debate bread tube. No, I didn't. I've always been totally up for debating these things, and I love debating things. I think you're thinking of someone else, mate. Sorry, let's...
Fair dues.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to debate. I'll put it that way. I feel like that's a war you're never going to win because you're not going to change their minds or anything. It's just you're stuck, basically.
You don't need to. Vor's just had some really quite catastrophic debates recently, and I'm really looking forward to the next time I talk to him, to be honest.
Fair enough. What's the next one here? Unhinged Entertainment says, the drinker about to sprinkle a little laughter into my mundane existence. You're doing the Lord's work. Thanks, man. I'm glad you get some entertainment from this. Charles Hurst gave me a super sticker, so thanks, mate. Projects Done Poorly says, Benjamin, signed up to your website. Pretty much the only news around these days.
Thank you very much, sir. We're doing our best.
So that is lotuseaters.com. I think on the link here, I put your YouTube channel. Just assume that was the thing to link to. Yeah. But would you rather people went to lotuseaters.com?
Either one is fine, honestly. But it's just lotuseaters.com. It's a nice aesthetic name that nobody knows what it is, but it's from the Odyssey. And about a bunch of people on an island who are just not evil. And that's a good start, I think. Very happy with how things are going.
Nice one. Be the Monster or Be Devoured says, have a round on me, boys. I freaking love both your content. Well, thank you very much, my friend. And
thank you.
I appreciate that. Jog says, drink from me too, lads. Thank you. Man, I need to get some more drinks in. Neil Morgan says, hey guys, love both channels. Do you plan doing another politics of video in the near future? P.S. Please BTFO Mauler on Avatar.
Avatar The Last Airbender? I hear that Mauler doesn't like it. Is that true?
I don't know. I've never heard him talk about it.
Chat, let me know if he
So I can
doesn't
tell you.
like. I'm sure someone's mentioned this to me, and I remember thinking, no way. There's no way Mauler didn't like it, and if he doesn't like it, I will BTFO him on it.
Yeah. We had an interesting chat this afternoon about the Snyder Cut, so that was good.
I haven't had time to watch Mauler's video on it yet, and I don't really follow the Marvel movies very carefully. I just really enjoy like Mauler's breakdowns of these things. So I don't like the Star Wars movies either, but I've watched like probably about 50 consistent hours of Mauler's deconstructions of them, and I really enjoy them. They're just good solid listening, man.
Yeah. He's infuriating because even if you like a movie, Mauler will somehow turn you against it. And it was kind of like that with the Snyder Cut. Like my take on it was kind of lukewarm. Like it's still a movie with lots of flaws, but I genuinely saw it as better than the Whedon cut. Whereas I was going through Mauler's video and I was like, "Yep, you're right on that point. You're right on that point. You're right there as well. Fuck." These are all stacking up now, and I'm starting to hate the movie.
Thanks, Mauler.
Yeah, just stop making me hate everything, Mauler. God damn it. So yeah, what's the next one? Novo Brainix says, "Hey Sargon, watch Jonathan Pago's video on Moana."
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, there you go. That's one to watch. Bellicose says, "Have either of you seen Master and Commander? Russell Crowe plays the captain of an English warship and fights the French. Very immersive and mostly historically accurate. We'd love to see a discussion or video about it." I've seen it.
I have not seen it.
Have you?
I've been told many times I should watch it, and I just never have. I probably will at some point.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. It goes into a little bit of the philosophy behind how you have to be kind of brutal to govern people, which is why he has to resort to lashing people when they're disobedient, that sort of thing. It's an interesting movie. But yeah, I think it's pretty, as far as I know, it's pretty historically accurate, and the battle scenes are great.
The chat is definitely endorsing it.
Yeah, it's a good film. Yeah. It's a good film. Brown Gaijin says, "Thanks for the review on Riddick. I know a lot of people like the movie, but you covered a lot of issues I had with it and feel more sane." Cheers.
Man, I tell you what, that was such a surprise review. I wasn't expecting you to do it. And so it came up in my subscriptions. I was like, oh yes, because I remember when that film came out, because I was a big fan of Pitch Black. And I think you really hit the nail on the head with both the difference between these two films. Like, Pitch Black was such a good film because it wasn't pretentious, and Riddick was a criminal. Like, he wasn't some amazing epic action hero. He was, you thought, the villain, and it turns out that actually he redeems himself by saving the kid and getting them onto the spaceship and flying off, and sort of like sacrificing himself instead. And it's like, yeah, that's a good point. Or, you know, like, he doesn't actually die, but you know what I mean? He stays and fights the monsters. And then, like, the next one, it's like, what the fuck am I watching? You know, like, what is this thing? You know, the first Pitch Black did not even hint at this stupid, like, caricature of a space opera, like, where he kills people with his teacups and stuff like this. Like, this is weird. Why does this exist? But, sorry, yeah.
It's a weird crossover where it really feels like they had a great plot for a standalone movie that had nothing to do with Pitch Black, but then the studio said to them, "No, we need something to launch it." And it's like, well, okay, Pitch Black was a popular movie. We'll just take Riddick and we'll port him into this epic, space fantasy film. And that's what you get. You get like this, on the one hand, like a grounded movie about Riddick having to escape from prisons and trying to Kira from the first movie, all that sort of thing. Yeah, great. You know, okay, that's a good follow-up. But then you've got this ridiculous stuff about necromongers and, you know, the Lord Marshal, who's like this undead monster thing, and elementals that can float through walls and all that nonsense. It's like magic versus a grounded, like, gritty sci-fi drama kind of storyline, and the two things do not match up in the slightest. And it's a shame because as a movie by itself, it's all right, but as a sequel to Pitch Black, it's a ridiculous disaster.
Yeah, that's the thing though, isn't it? Because Pitch Black had a great tension in it. You know, Riddick was a genuinely scary character, And the fact that when he escapes and ends up killing or wounding the cop who goes to get him, like I was totally on the cop's side, like because okay, he might be like a weirdo drug addict or something, but like Riddick's clearly a dangerous guy, and I want the cop to win, and Riddick obviously wins. So yeah,
Yeah, Riddick's not a nice
tensions.
guy. In
No,
in the first movie, like he watches people get eviscerated right in front of him, doesn't show the slightest emotion for them. He doesn't care that
yeah,
they died. Say he fights the cop and leaves him to get killed, doesn't care in the slightest.
yeah,
And so he's not a good person. Like he gradually redeems himself over the course of the movie, but it's a smart film in that it keeps you guessing about what exactly this man is,
hmm.
what created him, and who he is now, and what he might do. And that's a good bit of writing. But in the
Hmm.
sequel, yeah, it's just, kettle of fish. It's a weird film, really weird.
Yeah.
What's the next one here? Traveler says Carl Benjamin is great. The only Brit I would simp for. Watch his show and yours. So a simp right there.
Thank you, but you shouldn't
You
be
can
simping
you
for
can sell
anyone.
you can
Can
sell your
I?
bathwater to him. It'll be great.
Can I address the chap I addressed in the chat? He said he provided a link to where I said don't debate BreadTube. I actually can't find it. I missed it as it was going by. So post it again. And if I have merely forgotten because it may have been a while ago or something, then I will happily retract my statement.
This isn't a super chat, but I'm just looking through chat here as well. I want to give them a chance. Bryn Sullivan asks, "What's your guys' opinions on 12 Monkeys?" The movie, I love it. I think it's great.
Love it.
Really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fantastic movie, and again, one of those movies where the atmosphere is so well done that you can just sit down any time, pretty much any sort of boring Sunday afternoon, and just whack it on, and you're in this really interesting story that has a it's not even the payoff satisfying, but it neatly ties up the story into a paradox. And that's a weird thing to say because obviously a paradox shouldn't be something that's neatly tied up, but it seems to work for me. I don't know why, but no, it's a great film. Great film.
It's one of those self-fulfilling paradoxes that completes itself. And yeah, like movies that handle time travel are very difficult to get right. Like, and there's very few that manage to strike that right balance between going into the potential of it without going so far that they lose you. Back to the Future did it fairly successfully, and 12 Monkeys did it, and I think great films. They're just fun to watch,
And you didn't know what was going to happen next. That was the thing, and that's the same thing with Pitch Black as well. Like I didn't know what was going to happen, and the storytelling drew me into it, and I just enjoyed the ride.
Yep. Hi Ice 007 says, Drew, when are you going to do a drinker recommends on Waterloo? I fucking love that film. Honestly, no one ever talks about it now. But one of the greatest war movies ever made. I think they brought in, because it was a joint Soviet and American production, and I think they drafted in like 20,000 Soviet soldiers to be the French army for the Battle of Waterloo. And it's got the record for like the most number of extras in any movie ever. When you see like an entire, you need to watch it, man. I thought someone like you
do.
You're quite into.
Yeah, I'm shocked that I missed it. When was it released?
I think it was 1970, early 70s anyway.
Right.
So it's got Rod Steiger as Napoleon and Christopher Plummer as Wellington. And it's about the Battle of Waterloo, and it keeps it relatively faithful to the actual way the battle unfolded. And I think, it's just a fantastic movie. Like watching 10,000 men march across a battlefield with explosions and fire in the background is something else.
Yeah, so I really was it the Spartacus movie with Kirk Douglas in it. One of the things that people forget about that movie is that like. The representation of the Roman army in that is probably one of the best ever committed to film, because I'm a massive history buff. I absolutely love it. And when the army is first sort of staging itself and deploying on the other side of the battlefield, you just see the sort of regiments of the legions coming out, and you just realize, Christ, man, this is what it would have actually, because no CGI, no none of that nonsense. It's just literally 20,000 people with shields and spears or whatever, moving in formation, and you realize, Christ, this is what it would have actually looked like. And if you're just some rabble of barbarians, you're like, okay, they clearly mean business. They know what they're doing, and we're in trouble.
I love movies that show that kind of triumph of military discipline over just sheer aggression. That's I referenced Zulu once as like one of my favorite movies, because it just shows like the power of one, technology, but two, like just discipline and precision under immense pressure, and how that acts as such a force multiplier in the most desperate of situations. Like, love it. It just works so well.
One thing I liked about the movie Zulu as well is that there's a remarkable amount of respect given to the Zulus as combatants. Like the British Army doesn't look down on them as being, they're savages with spears. No. These are warriors, and they're going to mess you up if you just, if you don't do what you're supposed to do. And I always found that interesting, because you would think in the current era of political correctness, cancel this, cancel that, but you can't really cancel Zulu, because it doesn't portray the Zulus as being in any way like inferior. It portrays them as being a terrifying force that are about to kick your ass. So I really appreciate that about it.
There's a scene in the movie where I think Michael Caine's character makes some reference to like them being cowardly because of their skin color. I can't even say it because YouTube will ban me. Yeah. It's like a native commander there who's commanding like black troopers, who says to him, who do you think's coming to wipe out your little command? The Zulus are this powerful military machine that are going to destroy everything around you. So you should respect them, absolutely, because they're going to be your downfall. I just thought it was a great line. It just absolutely squashed him immediately.
Yeah, and it was true too. Like if you know anything about like the Zulu, they were hella good.
Yeah. They had the ability to charge in the most like dangerous, insane situations, but they had incredible bravery and discipline under pressure. So, yeah.
Like historically, the British Army was taught to treat the Zulu warriors as if they were cavalry, because they could run so fast, and they had a particular kind of formation that they called the bull's horns. So they had a force that engaged in the front, and then they just used this incredible speed to go around the flanks and into the back, and then just mess you up. And it's they had a huge empire by the time they ended up fighting the British because of this. If you're into history, you can do far worse than reading about the Zulus.
Absolutely. I love the scene where they're about to mass their final charge in the morning of the final day of the battle, and they're doing this war dance, and every time they strike their shields, it makes the ground shake because there's so many of them. I just love that absolute roar of them hitting their shields with their spears, and then they get the British like doing their hymn, like I think it's Men of Harlech they sing, because they're a Welsh regiment. But fuck, man, what a brilliant clash of cultures! Like both sides like showing respect to the other, but neither side's going to back down no matter what. What a movie! You do not get films like that.
That scene, like you're saying, the singing of Men of Harlech, like half my family's Welsh, and so it's sort of, I'm hearing echoes of the valleys and stuff. I'm like, oh God, it's quite emotional actually for me when I watch that scene. I really, really love it. Really love it. Yeah. Shame they don't make movies like that anymore, to be honest.
I love the juxtaposition there of like this ridiculously outnumbered force of men just singing this defiant song, like, yeah, we know you're going to crush us, but we don't fucking care. Bring it on. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Anyway, so what's the next one here? Binary Surfer says, you two are starting to resemble each other now Sargon's gone keto. Drinker, would you consider doing older series retrospectives, e.g. Babylon 5 or X-Files? You do look quite similar to me now, actually. We've even got grey beards at the same point.
I never expected you to have a grey beard. Like, you used the picture of yourself drinking, and I can't recall seeing your beard in that being grey. So I don't know whether that's an old photo or not. So when you came up today, I was, oh my god, he does look like me. A slightly less handsome
Yes, getting old. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
don't
like a
even
pale,
start.
washed out version of you. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm
It,
getting old as well, man.
it's like in Hacksaw Ridge, like, how long you been dead, son? What's the next one here? Yeah, Traveler says, amazing how many woke-loving weirdos are in the chat who hate Carl/Sargon. Can only say one thing to them: get bent. I think we're all right in chat now. Actually, I had to mute a few people
Yeah.
because they were getting a little bit out of
That's
hand.
all
But
right.
otherwise, it's all right. You know. Trenton Quinn says, Sargon and the Drinker, not the subject I expected to see you two Chads collaborate on, but a happy surprise nonetheless. Much love from Dallas, Texas. Thank man, and much love to you. Brain Shark, give me a super sticker, so thank you. Joe McGuinness says, visited the studio during production of Moana, was kind of the swan song for a lot of the old Disney guard. Lots of big names left the studio once it wrapped. This is why we got sequels for years after.
Oh, that's interesting.
That explains. Yeah,
Yeah.
that explains a lot. And that's really sad, actually. Like the people who were actually good at their jobs left.
And now you've got Kathleen Kennedy. Forever.
Yeah. Don't we just?
What's the next Star Wars movie they're making, actually? They were making another one, weren't they? And it's like, oh god, this sounds awful.
It's all TV shows, I think, at the moment.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, we got about 50 different shows, you know. I'm pretty sure you know that little thing that's in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. It just goes. That's probably got its own show now at this point. Like,
yeah,
everything.
All the spin-offs, like when you get like a million spin-offs of a successful property, to me that kind of implies the end of ideas. You know, they don't know what else to do. So I guess this character needs their own show, and this character needs their own show. It's like, okay, why don't you just do something else? No, because this is a cash cow. That's why.
I think what the I think what they're trying to do is some kind of MCU, but in TV format, because you know the situation we're in now, like you can't go to movie theaters, and so movies are kind of out of the picture at the moment, and so what they have is TV shows for streaming. So they're trying to do a bunch of spin-off shows that have come from The Mandalorian. You would have had like Boba Fett with his own show. You would have had Gina Carano with her own show, but that's not going to happen anymore for obvious reasons. Yeah, all that stuff. And it was going to be this big interconnected universe that would have big team-up events
Marvel
once
style,
every
right?
couple of years, like Avengers movies. Exactly, yeah. That's why they brought in Jon Favreau and not Dave Filoni, whatever the guy is who does the Marvel universe. Yeah.
Can we talk very briefly about how mediocre The Mandalorian was?
Oh yeah,
Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah,
because I can understand why people like it, but I watched like the first season and I was just bored. And the thing is, I was totally down for like I love The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and the Dollars trilogy, really great films. And so I'm and I love Firefly as well. So I'm totally open to like a science fiction western. You know, it sounds great, and The Mandalorian sounds like a really good character to do it. But the thing was just so just average, and I couldn't find myself getting into it. And the thing I found that was like remarkable about it was like the one Star Wars property that, even though it wasn't very good, it wasn't openly antagonistic to the concept of Star Wars. You know, at least the guy who made it obviously liked Star Wars and tried to make something that was Star Wars, even if it was kind of meh. You know, at least it wasn't like, we hate Star Wars and now Luke Skywalker's going to drink orange titty milk from this cow. The fuck are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
So it's like it's bare minimum.
It was. Yeah, and I think that was the benchmark for a lot of people, because they watched the movies and they were a horrendous disaster that were just like physically painful to watch. And so you got this show which was dumb and simplistic and totally unambitious, but good-natured. It was like watching the prequels again.
Yeah.
And so people got those homely vibes of like, oh, it feels like Star Wars again. It feels like the comfortable Star Wars that I used to know, that doesn't that doesn't like push agendas or anything like that. It's just telling a fun little story. People just latched onto that, just thinking, it's better than what we've been offered recently. And I think I even called that out when I did my first review of season 1. It's relatively good compared to the movies, but compared to any sort of normal TV show, it's really mediocre. But people would accept it because there's a hunger for just Star Wars properties of any sort that aren't, openly antagonistic towards the fan base, and that's what you had.
And that's a weird thing, isn't it? Like, and that I think that underpins like everything about the sort of new Star Wars generation, is that it seems to be an attack on the audience. Like, oh, you like Luke Skywalker? Well, he hates Jedi's now. He's throwing away his lightsaber. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not really the world's biggest Star Wars fan. I actually preferred Star Trek. So, like, if it was given to me, I'd be like, okay, well, I'll do my best with this. And I wouldn't like, right, how can I disrespect Luke Skywalker? Like, why would you do that? I just don't understand why you need to humiliate these beloved characters. And I can't view it in any other way than fuck you to the audience,
That's well, we've kind of discussed it a lot on things like EFAP and all that sort of thing, and we have come to the conclusion that the idea is you'll never accept characters like Rey or Finn or any of these mediocre cardboard cutouts from the new sequel trilogy because they're shit characters that have no real personality. Because you're always going to be drawn back to people like Luke and Han and Leia. They're the interesting characters that you remember from like being younger. Okay, how do we fix that? We're going to fix that by destroying those characters. They're not just going to get killed, they're going to get humiliated, and the very essence of them is going to get destroyed in your mind, so that you will then gravitate towards the new horrible replacements that we've created, because it's all you have now. That's what they've done, and that's what makes it so insidious and so unpleasant. It's a genuine hatred of what came before. And it just speaks to their inability to create something good. If you can't create something good, you destroy something good and replace it with something bad.
Yeah, it's gross.
And it's sad. That's what entertainment is now. It's a battlefield of ideas. And you only win through total destruction.
That's why Moana was so great. It wasn't anything like
it. It
wasn't anything like this.
It didn't try to break down anything. It was just telling a nice story. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was a good movie.
I'll watch it again,
That is the hallmark, though, of a good film, where you're comfortable just rewatching it. And it happens less and less nowadays because there's just fewer and fewer good films getting produced. But yeah, that's our theory as to what Star Wars is becoming. It's this battlefield of ideas now, and it's more about the message than the actual story.
I wonder if it's anything to do with the kind of millennial irony as well. Because there's a part of me that feels that the people who made the new Star Wars didn't understand why people liked the old one, and it's this kind of sincerity that Luke Skywalker has, and Darth Vader has sincerity. He's not an insincere villain. He means what he's doing, and he feels involved in what he's doing, and Luke Skywalker is involved in the other way, and the fact that Han Solo is that kind of ironic character who gets drawn into the resistance, the rebellion, whatever they called it, and that is overcome and incorporated into it, and then Han Solo is at the end getting the medal with the rest of them. He's not on the outside going, "Oh, you're shit. Everything about you's dumb," or whatever it is. And it's just really interesting. I wonder if there's any like dovetailing there. But anyway,
they're all archetypes, aren't they? Each of these characters has some classic trait of a classic mythical hero. Luke is this prototypical hero on a journey. From humble beginnings to like incredible finale. Han is the roguish loose cannon. Leia is the beautiful princess, but she's not quite what she seems, in that she doesn't just need to be saved, she's capable of helping herself. And so they all have interesting aspects to them, but they all have some kind of archetype that they're based on. And it's something that's universal. People can
Yeah.
take that and be like, yeah, I can connect with that. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter where I'm from.
Yeah.
The fucking Taliban in Afghanistan used to watch Star Wars to get like ramped up for fighting, because they saw themselves as the rebels fighting against the evil empire.
God, I didn't
That's
even
what
know
they
that.
used.
Really? That's
That's the kind of
fantastic.
thing that they would use, because whatever your circumstances, wherever the hell you're from in the world, you can project yourself onto those characters because they're that universal. They
Yeah, they're
speak the
human.
universal experiences.
Mm.
Everyone knows that guy who's just a selfish asshole, but deep down he's got a heart of gold and he'll help you out. Everyone knows that person who's a bit naive and kind of like has not much experience of the world, but they're going to grow into it. All of those things, that's
Yeah.
universal storytelling. That's why people
Yeah.
still watch Star Wars after so many years. You take what we've got now, the sequel trilogy, that's based around post 2016 politics, and that's all it cares about. Who the hell's going to watch that 10 years from now? It's going to be irrelevant.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Admiral Holdo, she's a cool character. She was definitely look at her hair. Look at her hair. She looked great, and she was so respectable in the way that she was a total bitch. So I don't know what you're talking about, to be honest.
I had a really interesting time breaking down her character, where I compared her as a leader.
Can you even
I
imagine
compared her
following that
to. I know, yeah. I would never listen to a thing that person says, but I contrasted that with the plot line for Crimson Tide, where you've got again another commander in a position where they are in conflict with the person below them, they're subordinate. But in that movie, it's smart because they both have understandable reasons for doing what they're doing, and there's no judgment made about either character. Who you ultimately believe in is just down to your personal preference. That's an interesting film. You can discuss that. Who was right, who was wrong. With Last Jedi, it's very clear. Like, the movie wants you to believe that Holdo was right, whereas everything she does is actually wrong. So it's a really weird contrast.
Holdo just comes across like the villain to me. Like, why? I mean, like, Finn was. Which was the guy who? Yeah, it was. No, it wasn't Finn. It was Poe. Yeah. Just Poe did nothing wrong, right? If your commanding officer treats you this way and it looks like she's going to get you all killed, then you stage a rebellion. Like, you need mutiny. It's the right thing to do. She was totally irresponsible. Poe did nothing wrong at all.
Yeah, I've genuinely, like, when we've talked about this on EFAP and various other things, every decision that Poe makes throughout the entire movie, based on the information he has, is entirely correct.
Yep.
And yet the movie tries to vilify him and makes him out to be wrong. And it's such a weird misunderstanding of what's actually going on and trying to mislead your audience.
And why? Simply because he didn't follow her authority blindly. Oh, no.
Yeah.
What a bad guy. What an asshole.
Because, throughout history, nothing bad's ever come from just blindly following what you're told to do.
No one ends up in a trial for war crimes after that,
Yeah. It's what messaging? What messages to give to people? Like, what are you going to take from that movie?
Holdo is the villain. That's what I take from that movie. Holdo is the villain.
100%. What's the next one here? Right. Chris Schick says, "Drinker, you downly mobile rapscallion. Keep up the great work. Have a fine drink on me. I'm on book 3 of the Ryan Drake series. I'm enjoying them as much as your channel." Excellent. I'm glad you're enjoying my books. Cody Griffin says, "Because of you and the rest of the gents, I've started watching Star Trek, the original series, and 1 to 6 of the movies. It's a first. Great show. Also love your stuff. Please, I did in fact enjoy Moana. Cheers, boss." I'm glad you're enjoying Star Trek. I honestly, like, those streams where we've talked about the original movies, they're some of the best ones that I've done. I've just really loved it. Like, every film I've loved talking about.
See,
Um,
I like the original Star Trek was a bit before my time. I always watched Next Generation, and I saw someone asking earlier, "Oh, discuss Star Trek." I was like, "Well, there we go." But much to my eternal shame, I liked Voyager quite a lot, almost as much as the Next Generation series. That's probably a black mark against me. That probably not
I
allowed.
think Voyager was okay. I think the
Yeah, I didn't hate
most
it.
criticism, the criticism it got, that it was a bit safe and it was a bit predictable and a bit stodgy, because it was Rick Berman who was producing it, and like he'd been
Mhm.
at Star Trek for a long time, and it become a bit unambitious. And I think, as an interesting little side note, um, the guy who ultimately did the Battlestar Galactica remake, in the early 2000s, he was originally in charge of Voyager, and he wanted it to be more like Battlestar Galactica, where like
Mm.
the crew are up against it. They face horrendous challenges, like the ship gets fucked up, like it was going to be a proper survival situation. Whereas I think Rick Berman overruled him, and it was Ronald D. Moore actually who wanted to do that. And he made it just more of a standard like Star Trek Next Generation kind of
Yeah, I mean,
storyline, but just they were trying to get home.
yeah, I mean, it was quite safe if you think about it. Like they still had quite a comfortable existence, didn't they? And I mean, they were
Yeah.
fairly good. There were some good episodes where they ran into another ship that was falling apart at one point, and the captain had kind of turned evil for out of necessity to try and survive. And that's kind of how I think maybe Voyager should have been really. But anyway,
Well, there was one like two-parter I think called The Year of Hell, where
mm,
Voyager actually does get fucked up. Like it's trying to get through this restricted area of space, and it's getting constantly attacked, and the ship's getting more damaged, and the crew have to abandon. Like some of them have to abandon ship, all that sort of thing. And that was like a little taste of what the show might have been like if they'd allowed the original vision of it to go through.
mm,
But what you got was a little bit more safe and predictable and stuff. But yeah, I love TNG, and I love the original series movies. Like all of them in their own way. Even five, as awful as it was, has real charm to it. Way more than anything that they've produced recently.
yeah.
Um, what's the next one? Ross Mitchell says, "Hail Sargon, liked your video on the politics of Starship Troopers. Would you and Drinker do a stream on this movie next time? Drinker just saw Extraction. Cheers for the recommendation."
Oh,
Um,
it's
yeah,
up to you.
yeah. I mean, that was one of my suggestions actually with Starship Troopers. People seem to want us to talk about it.
I would be more than happy to set aside a few hours sometime in the future to do that. If
Next
there's
one.
one film I
All
can
right.
talk at length about, it's that.
It's an interesting movie. It really is. I want to do a proper video of it because, yeah, my perception of it changed so much over the years compared to when I first saw it. Thomas Payne says, "What myths should Disney do next? From what era? People, culture, etc. From the Aborigines to Proto-European, African, etc." So yeah, what would be a good subject for a new Disney film?
Let me think.
I think you know more than I do actually about this stuff.
To be honest with you, I mean there are ones that you could do in a really interesting way, but I don't know if I trust Disney to do them well now. That's the thing. I would find like the European colonization of Africa is actually a really interesting period of time because it wasn't just as like the film Zulu shows. It wasn't just like, oh, this is one sided and the evil white man turns up, shoots people, and then oppression. It's not like that. I mean, some of it's like that, but like a lot of it's not like that, and it's all really complex. And you could have some really interesting interactions between different cultures that could be meaningful and teach you lessons. And I don't think Disney would be able to bring that story out anymore. So I don't know. Just best stick to, I don't know, anything else really. I don't want to kind of sacrifice an interesting period of history to Disney anymore because I don't really trust them. But there are like Hollywood. I hate Hollywood when it comes to history because as far as Hollywood is concerned in history, right? There's Caesar. There's like miscellaneous medieval battle, and then there's like modern history in World War II, and it's like great. and like there's so much that happened all throughout history that is so epic, and you never get to hear about any of it. You never see any of it, and it's a real shame because so many great things are being missed out on. So many great things. But I mean, I'd like to see more sword and sandals epics because they've fallen out of fashion, which is sad. So we watched Troy the other day, and that was great, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd love to see them cover the Great Leap Forward. I think that would make a fantastic movie.
Disney could do that. Jesus, Jesus Christ, traumatizing.
World War Three.
Oh God, it's like an apocalypse.
Yeah, God. Lord Trinan says if they really insist on writing overpowered characters like Captain Marvel, they should study shows like One Punch Man to see how to write overpowered heroes who still struggle in other ways. Yeah, very much so. Because you can present them with other challenges beyond just physical stuff. So, yeah, absolutely.
A friend of mine, I always used to hate Superman because I was like, he's a guy who's got like one weakness and otherwise he can do everything. Why do I care? And a friend of mine was like, no, actually, look, that's the point, right? The point is don't worry about the physical challenge. The point is the moral challenges that he has to overcome. And and suddenly I was like, okay, yeah, fine, he's not shit, But I was never a fan of Superman though. But he kind of persuaded me into being like, okay, be soft on it, rather than hard on it.
I think most people would go for Batman over Superman, really. He's cooler. He's more fallible. Yeah. So Jog says, awesome with 2 streams in a row, one more drink on me. Yeah, I did BBC last night with Az. I was a stand-in for Gary, and it was great fun. It was good. The Jonathan says, Elon needs to hurry up and make the Martian Congressional Republic. Yeah. He'll get there. He'll get there. I just hope it happens when I'm not like old and decrepit, like traveling to Mars becomes a thing in my lifetime.
I just love the way he was like, we're not going to be bound for Earth laws. And it's like, oh, Christ.
Yeah. We need that, though. We need that as a species. We need to set our sights on like a bigger challenge because, obviously there's nothing left on Earth that can challenge us. We don't have to worry about survival or anything. And when you've got nothing to aim for, you stagnate. And you end up like just obsessing over petty, nonsensical nonsense, and that's where we're at right now. We just need something else to aim for as a species, not just as a culture, as a species.
Yeah, you're right. We need an intergalactic war with aliens. I agree with Critical Drinker.
Yeah. We need the arachnids. Honestly, we need our shippers. Ed Starr says, thank you both for a wonderful and thoughtful conversation. Drinks are on me. Well, thank you very much, man. And I really appreciate your donation. So thanks for that. Disney Story Origins podcast gave me a $10 super chat with nothing on it. So, well, thank you. King Lenny says, legendary duo. Thank you, man. Cody Griffin, I'll drop 5 just to say every time Ray won, I yelled, Slay Queen. Worst character ever. Yeah.
That's a lot of slay queen in the cinema.
Yes, Queen slay. There was so many groans in my cinema when I was watching the Star Wars movies, like genuine. And you know yourself, Carl, like in the UK, people don't say things much. People don't cheer or anything. No. But when she was on screen and just kicking people's asses, there was like genuine like, give me a break.
And it's the total opposite in American cinemas as well. I went to America a few times and I saw a few films out there. And the Americans are very interactive. They applaud in the cinema. I'm like,
oh yeah, 100%.
Like there's no one there. They can't hear you.
They don't care though. It's just it's the culture.
Yeah, it's kind of nice though. It's kind of sincere, It's like, it's cute.
No, I like it. You know. There's movies that you can totally get behind. I remember, like, I was over there and I was seeing, I can't remember the name of it. It's that movie about the monster rampaging through New York City. Not Godzilla, but it's like the, man. It's like this, it's all filmed through handheld cameras.
I know the one you're talking about.
Fuck, why can't I remember the name? Jack can probably help
Cloverfield?
me.
Is it
Cloverfield, that's
Clover?
the one. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
The scene with the the
Sorry, go
scene
on.
with the military rock up in tanks and stuff, and they start shooting rockets at it. Like the
Mm,
cinema erupted in cheers when that happened, and I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll just cheer as well." It's great.
yeah. But that was like in the early 2000s when there was this kind of like trend of doing like first person camera movies, wasn't there? Like found
Yeah,
footage films and stuff. I actually quite enjoyed
yeah.
that trend. I thought I enjoyed quite a few of those. I like the Blair Witch Project. I thought it was quite good. The sequels are shit, but
I I liked it, but I watched it in the worst possible way. Like I was too young to see it at the cinema, so my
mm,
friend and I ended up watching it like on a sunny afternoon, with the window open and stuff, and just like just watching it on a shitty little TV in my room. And I was like, yeah, we're not getting the full effect here. I don't think.
yeah, yeah.
That crime guy here says, "Hey, Drink, hey, Sargon, cool crossover. Would love to have either of you on our weekly horror podcast to discuss certain films and share opinions." Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
I try to do things when I can. It's just finding the time, I guess.
Yeah.
Baron von Blair says the symbolism of the little rooster was clever. The incompetent little slapstick cock was used well. Haha. Cheers from California, guys. I think with any Disney movie, you always have to have an animal sidekick. It's just, it's necessary. Monkey Man says, will you be doing a drinker reviews on Ghost of Tsushima? I mean, I've live streamed myself playing it, if that's any consolation, and I really love it. It's a fantastic game. Yeah, great stuff. I don't know if I would then do a review after that, because I've kind of done a lot of it already. Lord Trinan says, one thing that confused me is why did Maui return after he left Moana? He was so adamant when he left, so what made him change his mind?
Good question. We don't find out.
I assume, like...
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think everything that she'd said up until that point, the fact that she was so determined to succeed and she was willing to risk everything, I guess it ultimately got through to him and it made him have a change of heart.
Yeah, but I mean that is one of those sort of holes in the plot. Because I mean, if you were being hypercritical, you could be like, well, there is no particular thing that appears to influence him to come back, and you're right, but really that's not the point, But that's a fair criticism. It's not a perfect film.
What's the next one? Anthony Zuperin says Immortal 2004 film by Enki Bilal, a very bizarre movie that wasn't a financial success, shot entirely on a digital backlot. Interesting story about gods and mortals interacting, however. I might be getting that confused with The Immortals, which had Henry Cavill in it, but I think that's a different film. It was a bit later, so I'm not sure about this one. Ollie Burner says, Drinker, please give 13th Warrior a look sometime. I've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
Antonio Banderas, great film. Really good. Based on a Stephen King novel, I think, Eaters of the Dead.
No. It's based on an account from an Arabic traveler who goes to like somewhere in Russia. At the time, it's like Vikings, the Rus are invading, and it's actually based on an actual sort of 10th century account. And I read the account. The thing is, the events of when they are in the village defending it from the savages, the cavemen or whatever they're called, that's not included in it. But like the account stops before any of that stuff happens. But it is based on like a historical journey that the Arab chronicler went on, the diplomat.
Well, I actually didn't know
It's really
that. I thought it was just based on the book, which was just made up by itself.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, 'cause I think they're implied to be, I don't know if they're Neanderthals or something in the movie, but they've got the Venus figures with them.
Yeah.
Which are fertility symbols, but they're like from like much earlier cultures, like 10,000 years earlier or something like that, and they've still got them. So you're like throwback or something. But it's a cool movie. lot going on in
Yeah, I
that
love
film,
it.
actually.
Hmm.
Trenton Quinn says, adding on to Sargon's mention of the X-Men cartoon, I remember the episode where Nightcrawler helps Wolverine renew his faith in God. It was a tremendous moment from my childhood that still stays with me. And also from him says, I hate how mature cartoons have lost the meaning of the word. The cartoons from our childhood tackled some pretty heavy topics in such an adult way.
Hmm.
Yeah, they did.
You know,
And they didn't try to
the
preach to you.
in 2013, I was going to do like a video about this ages ago, but I never got around to it. But like, there was this new X-Men cartoon that was produced in like, I think it was about 2012, something like that. And I remember thinking it was just so different to the original one. If you look at like the first episode of the original 90s sort of X-Men cartoon, it focuses in the beginning on Jubilee and how she's an adopted child in her parents, step parents, whatever, adopted parents' house, and then the Sentinel comes in to try and get her, and she has to flee. And it's very personal. It's focused on her. She's doing kid stuff, and then in this new one, it was like on some flying base with some giant industrial things, and there were very important people going around, and I was just like, man, it's like night and day watching the tone of these things. Like, who is this talking to? At the time I never really thought about it, but like now I'm looking back and going, wow, you can really see the shift in the culture and the sort of people and the sort of stories they're telling you.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the difference is nowadays, like they don't have the ability to create interesting stories, so all they can do is like bleach
Yeah.
off old ones
Oh yeah.
and destroy them in the process. It's like that's the hardest part to accept about all of this is like seeing really good work of previous generations like tarnished and destroyed by like the absolute incompetence of the people doing it now.
Yep.
Let's see. Lobster here says, well, lobster. Uh, interesting. Interesting contribution to the discussion, sir. Thank you. GG Chapel says, just finished bottling 5 gallons of IPA. Here's some drinking money for you, good sir. Will you be performing any renditions of the songs? I'll pay extra. Shiny in a Scottish accent would be amazing. I'm not going to be singing tonight. That's Doomcop's job. But like Sargon, if you want to have some singing, go for it, man.
I'll defer to the experts.
There we go. Jeff Musso says Mortal Kombat is moral compass. Also, drinker, please review Ravenous, the Guy Pearce movie about cannibals. That's one I haven't seen actually, and normally I've watched a lot of Guy Pearce's stuff, so I'll give it a look. Jose gave me a super sticker. Thanks, Brian. Warp Spoon says something to show you I have. Takes Luke to this cave. Okay, thank you for that. Just give me a second to refresh.
Wow, the chat really likes it.
Right, here we go.
Never heard of it.
No. Right, I'm just going down here. Where was I? I've just seen some of the super chats that are coming up here. By the way, I just wanted to check, man. How's your time? Because I don't want to keep you too long or anything, but
yeah, pretty good. I guess another 10-15 minutes, and then I think my bladder might burst. But other than that, I think I'm good for a little while longer.
Okay, cool. I'll just piss myself live on stream. That's fine. Yeah. Wales
Chad.
doesn't suck. Yeah, it says a real man pisses himself live on stream. He says, "Have a good Easter holiday, lads." Thank you, man, and I hope you have a good Easter holiday too. Jim Cook says, "Great conversation. Kind of makes me want to see the movie. Go see it. It's good."
Yeah.
Michael Hings says, "Stream with Comics Matter. It would be good." Well, I'll see if I can get it set up. The Anime Guy says, "How would you do character who is an abortion survivor? Because character I wrote for Ugly Duckling Story, fucking the writing on this is quite challenging. But the people I ask for help
survivor.
seem, yeah, the people I ask seem disinterested or outright hate the idea of an abortion survivor. I don't know how you would even write that.
I don't
I don't know.
have.
I don't know what to give you on this one, man.
God, I dread to think I didn't go down that rabbit hole. I think.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge. I'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
Chris Raposo says, awesome to see Carl on this one and been following Lotus Eaters since day one. Both of you have a great Easter weekend. Cool. Thanks,
Thank you very
mate.
much, sir.
Andrew Bin says, I can't stop staring into Sargon's dreamy eyes.
Flatter me.
There we go. The Holtonator says, on the irony in storytelling, I was reading a scene my friend had written with a character being coy. He'd just gotten beaten into the ground. And I was like the kid, 16, he would be scared and not be coy. So 2D guy to the guy who just BT'd him. Yeah, I don't think you would be coy if you just had the shit kicked out of you. You'd be in pain.
That was what made Tyler Durden such an interesting character in Fight Club, though, wasn't it? When he was getting his ass kicked and he's just like, I can't remember what he says, but it's the fact that he doesn't care about the fact he's getting his ass kicked that made him disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, I think once you know what he is, like it gets put into context. But yeah, it's the fact that like, when that moment where he says, "I want you to hit me as hard as you can," that so goes against like your instincts as a person to hit someone. That you haven't,
when the bar owner comes down and he beats him up, and he's laughing about it, you could see the guy's disturbed by the fact he's enjoying the fight. That's a really freakish moment. I just remember that.
Yeah, is he not spraying blood onto the guy?
Yeah.
You don't know where I've been, Lou. Blah.
Exactly. It's an absolutely gripping scene, and that's like when he was saying he's being coy. I that's what I was reminded of. It's a great scene, man.
It's an interesting thing, and I can't remember whose book I was reading about this. It was like one of their autobiographies, but it was like some guy who'd ended up going into the special forces and stuff. And he said because he'd done a lot of time inside as a teenager, he'd done in like young offenders institutions, all that sort of thing. And he said that the secret I discovered to not get messed with is like whenever someone causes trouble with you, you just go from 0 to 100 instantly and act absolutely like over the top insane with them. Like you're desperately want to fight them because they're straight away going to be like, no, I don't want to mess with this guy. He's fucked in the head and I don't want to go near a guy like that. And it absolutely worked for him. And I think there is a person like that who has absolutely no fear of getting hurt, that you wouldn't want to mess with them because you can't fight them.
Yeah, there's something else going on here that you don't know about, and so you should be careful.
Yeah. What's the next one? Andrew Bomer says, whiskey drinkers drink a Lotus Eater. Two of my favorite YouTube culture commentators, whiskey and dark chocolate. Nice. Ran Murray, 82, says, when Moana doubts herself late in the film, it strikes me as self-centered. The ocean chose me. Why not tell Maui this mission is bigger than them? I think it was meant to be a moment of doubt for the character because she based her whole mission on the idea that she was chosen to do this. And when that's taken away from her, like it robs her of her confidence. And so suddenly she faces up to this idea that, oh man, maybe the world doesn't care about me. Maybe there's no one guiding my progress and I'm just a naive kid out of her depth. I think that was meant to be that scene anyway. Shadowhawk says, could you do a happy hour on the Warriors? I could. There are many movies to cover. Dirk Chieselman says, what's it going to take for you to write a script with the Daily Wire? Don't even need politics, just a good move for a change. Hey, my books are there. If they want to pick up the options on them, go for it.
That would be awesome, though.
Rachel, yeah. the first, my first book is meant to be getting made into a movie. We've signed various contracts and stuff, so they're waiting for the whole COVID thing to go away a little bit so they can shoot because it's meant to be done in Eastern Europe. So we'll see. Rachel says, here's a crossover I never thought about happening, but I'm glad it is. Also, Drinker, your video about It's a Wonderful Life brought me to tears. Well, thank you. Yeah, that was a fun one to do.
Someone in the chat's like, Sargon doesn't look comfortable, to be honest. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go because I really need to go for a piss. So we've been sat here for
no problem.
2 hours or whatever, and I've been drinking my tea. So I'm kind of desperate to go. Not because I'm not enjoying the conversation, but because I'm not Chad enough to piss myself on stream, to be honest. And one day I'll have learned your skills. But
yeah, that's why my lower half is out of shot right now. You just see like a stain spreading out. You know?
Anyway, I'm going to go. Yeah.
No, honestly, man, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you tonight. I appreciate you coming on. It's been great to catch up with you. Like we didn't really get a chance to talk on Mauler stream or anything, but on here it's been cool, man.
Yeah, dude, I've really enjoyed it. I really appreciate the fact that you wanted to have a conversation. That you let me choose the topic as well, because I can't think of many other content creators I would have had this kind of conversation about this film with, because I thought this was an appropriate one because I thought you'd get it, and I think you did. And so I felt it was a really, really good conversation. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
No, 100%. Like when I have people on, like I want them to pick things that they're interested in. And 9 times out of 10 it'll be something that I really enjoy anyway, so it matches up fine. And same again today. Like there's always something interesting to talk about with a film like this. So I've very much enjoyed it. And for people watching in chat, by all means, like I've put the link to Sargon's YouTube channel here, but also subscribe to lotuseaters.com, just because I think you covered news, daily events, all that sort of thing.
We've got a daily podcast that's doing very well, actually. Everything's going very, very well, and we're enjoying the work, and we're doing fun things. So do feel free to come and check us out. Right, I'll thank you again, and I'll see you later, man.
No worries, mate. I'll let you go empty your bladder.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, cheers, man. All right, cool. Looks like it's just me then, so I'm going to see if I can get through the rest of these super chats. Let's see, what's the next one here? Artificer Joni says, have you seen Tunternaton Solitas, the Unknown Soldier movie, based on the novel by Vino Lina? No, I haven't seen that, I'm afraid, so I couldn't really comment on it. Anton Gerdeau says, elders are frauds because they might suggest you aren't perfect and your worldview is flawed. Anything that requires self-improvement, restraint, or living up to something is oppressive. Old bad, new good. I think that's exactly like what we were talking about here. The idea that, elders have probably lived a much tougher life than we have. And we should probably listen to what they have to say because they've earned the right to have opinions on things. That used to be the message that you would get from movies, that there's something to be said for experience and wisdom. You don't get that anymore. You should just go with your feelings, man. Just do whatever you feel like. Liberty or Death says, V said, don't debate BreadTube because they will report your channels because they are losers. Yeah, most probably. They don't like to have their opinions challenged, I wouldn't think. Trinoculus P says, we'd love to hear Sargon's take on Ford versus Ferrari. I thought Drinker's take was spot on. Damn it. I'm sure he would have liked it because it seems like his kind of film. Marksman of 117 says, Sargon, have you seen the Soviet movie Come and See about a boy whose village is handed over to the SS by sympathizers? Straight drama, but the film style is what was adapted for horror. A heavy watch. I don't know about Sargon, but I've definitely never seen that movie. But I like the premise of it. It sounds interesting. Jesse Smith says, your video, Why the Past Matters and Why We Need Heroes, really got me emotionally. Good job, man. Thank you very much. And those are the kinds of videos that they seem to stick with people, because they strike a chord. And I guess that's the point. That's what we're not getting with films nowadays. Having a respect for the movies that were made in the past. And also, some of those archetypes that you just look for in storytelling, you don't get them anymore because they're seen as old-fashioned or whatever. And man, it's such a shame because you miss out on so much. Those are the things that inspire people and get them motivated and fired up. And when you see a movie like that, that's what really helps people through life. That's what inspires them to do more with their own lives. And if you don't get that, what the hell have you got to aim for? John Smith says, Sargon, tell Adam that 6-year-olds shouldn't vote. They probably shouldn't. Archipelago says, Critical Drinker, talking about time travel, will you review the German Netflix show Dark? Would love to hear your take on it. I haven't seen it, so I don't know much about it. But I do like time travel shows, so it's maybe worth looking at. Thomas Riddle says, hello, Drinker, Sargon, and chat. I recommend watching Symbolism in Moana by Jonathan Pago here on YouTube. Yeah, I think we got a thing about that earlier. It seems like that's kind of an interesting video. Thomas Payne says, what myth from what culture or era do you want Disney to make? E.g. Celtic, Babylonian, African, Aborigine, Proto-European. Yeah, we talked about this earlier. Like, there's so many different historical things that you could do, but like so many of them are taboo subjects now that you just can't touch. You're kind of stuck, because nothing can be addressed honestly or with any sort of interest. So what do? I don't know. They've done most of these things already, but they did it far better in the past. Hot Coffee says, Drinker, are you going to get Starlink internet service? Yeah, I would happily take that because it's got to be better than shit I've got right now. John Smith says, Mandalorian has more filler than a Naruto episode. Yeah, it really does. Stybeck B says, if you love Zulu, you must watch Hell's Reach. This is Warhammer 40k version of it. I also recommend to watch The Black Lagoon. I'm totally down for that. Amitesh Prasad says, the definition of good has changed. Thank you, Drinker, for reminding us what it was. I'm a huge fan of your work. Please keep it up. Absolutely. Yeah. Movies and TV shows, whatever it might be, that really get you fired up and inspired, like, that's something you never let go of. And when you see it getting destroyed nowadays, you can't help but react to it. So that's what just fuels me to keep making videos like I do. Anything that you can get passionate about, it's got to be good. Jens Jurgensen says, do Field of Dreams one day. Greatest speech ever from James Earl Jones in the end. Always gets to me. Yeah, Field of Dreams is a fantastic movie. And I absolutely look forward to covering that 100%. Preston Sparks says, hello from Oklahoma. You two should do Fight Club. I feel like that movie hits home way harder now. Both love your content. Keep up the good work. Yeah, I've already done a review of Fight Club, so you can find that on my main channel. But yeah, it's an excellent film, and it's just as relevant now as it was 20 years ago when it was made. Masturbator says, watch the last video on Adam's channel. A girl pegs him. Well, I'll take your word for that, man. Seishumatsu says, have either of you boys ever watched Vikings? Interesting what you have to say about the character arcs throughout the show and its ending. I've never watched it all the way through. I've only watched a few episodes here and there, but I've heard it's good. But yeah, I just never had the time for it. Zero Depressive says, Sargon, now this is a blast from the past. Indeed. Aromatic Crispy Bat says, Holder reminds me of Sturgeon. Thinks by doing nothing, COVID will eventually end after Scotland has no businesses left. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get out of lockdown in about 10 years. It'll be great. The Jonathan 130 says, you guys should cover the original Red Dawn. Yep, fantastic movie. Love it. G-Man says, my brother got mad when I told our sister he loved The Rise of Skywalker. But he said it was polarizing and absolutely everyone else hated it. What else could I conclude? 3 out of 12 burgers. Yeah, garbage, pretty much. Nova Brannick says, there is Bertolucci's The Last Emperor about China. Fair dues, yeah. Taker 610 says, wait, which one is Sargon and which is Drinker? Yeah, we're starting to look a bit like each other. It's scary. I think because Sargon's lost weight, so he's looking more like me. Dirk Cheesler, man, gave me a $1 super chat. Thanks, mate. A Hill says, Carl, did Jim get you a new suit for your Applebee's job? We'll never know. Zero Depressive says, we need a full frontal confrontation with a huge asteroid. Yeah, absolutely. Bring on Armageddon. Sentinel Rex says, Superman could solve at least half of the world's problems, such as world hunger, by tending the world's largest farm, but he doesn't. Superman is lazy. Indeed, he is. And the Snyder version of Superman is sad and broody. Henry Ashman says, Moana definitely reminded me of the period in the late 80s with Howard Ashman's films to early 2000 Disney films like Atlantis that were honest, heartfelt, and genuine. That's all optional now. It's not just optional, it's just absolutely outlawed. You just don't get it anymore. Julius Cornelius says, we need the story of Hypatia's murder by the howling mob of Christian fanatics. We need a Neo-Platonist Disney princess. Good luck with that. I don't think they would address that stuff somehow. Michael Kenny says, Sargon is the evil clone of Drinker, and Nick Offerman is Sargon from the future. Can't change my mind. Cheers from New Jersey, gents. Yeah. Sargon's like me, but less drunk. Jay-Z says, Drinker, any chance you'll do the original Total Recall from the 80s? Right up your alley. Absolutely, I'll be doing that movie, either in a review or a live stream. One way or another, I will do it because it's a great film. Lord Umbra says, have you seen the petitions from game developers asking governments to cancel a video game they disagree with? Game journalists aren't covering this. Yes, I think that's about a battle in Fallujah. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. You should be allowed to cover whatever you want in games, just as you are with movies. I've got no reason to cancel it. But that's the absolute disgrace that games journalism has become nowadays. Murphy says hi, gave me $5, so thanks, man. Zachary Jarvie says 13th Warrior is actually an adaptation of Beowulf. Everything except the Arab point of view character is right out of Beowulf. Interesting, because I didn't really see the parallels there, because I thought Beowulf was about fighting Grendel and his mother, rather than like an entire army of Death Eaters, but I could be wrong. What's the next one here? John Holstrom gave me $5 super chat, so thanks, mate. Tara Sadowski says, we'd love to see a review of Gattaca, very underrated sci-fi film with a great cast and interesting characters. Yeah, it's been about 15 years since I've seen that film. I didn't remember liking it particularly when I saw it, but maybe in retrospect it would be better. Ulrich Call says, Dear Drinker, what does it take for Scott to get decent internet these days? It takes a lot. Okay, it takes a decent internet provider and it takes a good internet connection, because the one I'm on right now is pretty much the best I can get, and it's still shit. And I'm not even like out in the middle of the countryside or anything. I'm just in a town, but the internet is just generally crap here. That's what it means to be Scottish. Everything sucks. Andy Rintoul says, Mr. Drinker, sir, do you ever think we will see any of Ian M. Banksy's novels on the big or small screen? Yeah, I mean, his sci-fi novels, I would hope to see. I'm sure some of his stuff, like The Wasp Factory, that's been made into like TV shows already. So, yeah, I think some of his stuff has already been adapted. Adrian says, how much do y'all bench? Well, at the moment, fuck all, because the gyms have been closed for about 4 months now. So I have no idea. But yeah, before that, I was benching about, so it was 100 kilos. So that would be about 210 pounds. So not like particularly heavy, but like, it's all right for me. For a guy with long arms, it's not bad. Adrian says, would you date that Star Wars girl? Yeah, but I don't think she would date me somehow. Joe Holstrom says, have you ever seen El Topo, Holy Mountain, or Jodorowsky's Dune? Before superhero movies, there were more thought-provoking films. I actually haven't seen any of those, so I couldn't tell you, I'm afraid. TC says, well, Drinker, you showed an open mind streaming with Sargon. Fair play, you're a better man than me. Sargon's a good guy. He was fun to talk to. We're just here to talk about movies, man. That's all. Plavonica says, watched an HD version of Cinderella and was amazed at the quality of animation for a movie from 1950. Good singing, too. Yeah, you'd be surprised the amount of work that goes into these hand-drawn animations compared to nowadays. Like, man, they really had to put in the work, but real love went into movies like that, and that's what you miss. Jonas Diaz says, other than Moana, any modern Disney movie or Pixar animated films good enough, worth making a video for? Also nice to hear you've seen Avatar Last Airbender. So with Pixar movies, I would love to do a video on Up. I think that's a great film. Man, that first 5-10 minutes has got more emotion in it than like the entirety of the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Fantastic. Toy Story movies, also great. Vesuvius says, Drinker, Jonathan Pago, The Symbolic World, does a great Moana breakdown. He explains the subtle theme of feminine replacement of the masculine on his channel, The Symbolic World. Check it out. Okay. I think that there's definite themes there of that. It's woven throughout the story. It never becomes like really overbearing and obnoxious, but you get that sense of kind of feminine, like gentle power, I guess you would call it. Like Moana can't dominate a situation physically, but she can persuade people through perseverance, and I think that's an interesting idea. Star Fury says, awesome show, Critical Drinker. How about doing Constantine with whiskey? Keep up the good work, brother. Whoa. We will see on that one. Adrian says, do you watch Attack on Titan? I don't, I'm afraid, so I couldn't tell you about that one. The Jonathan 130 says, no, Superman isn't lazy. You're not entitled to super labor. Farm your own crops, Commie. Is the Superman not entitled to the sweat on his own brow? That's what I ask myself. Yeah, he doesn't owe people anything, really. What's next? Tim the Enchanter says the Drinker should direct Midsummer too. Yeah, everyone just goes home and nobody gets killed. Perfect. I've just solved the movie. Right, I think I'm pretty sure I've got to the end of the super chats here. Just see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, here's a couple. John Okotree says, hey Drinker, I know you get a ton of recommendations, but I really think you'd enjoy Friedkin's Sorcerer, classic 70s cinema, and no sorcerers. All right, cool, man. I'll keep that one in mind. Weefy117 says, thoughts on Falcon and the Winter Soldier going super woke in episode 2? They really went with the black super soldiers, got it worse than the white ones. Yeah, 100%. The racial politics in that show were really overbearing in episode 2. There was already hints of it in episode 1, but I could look past it. But I think it made its point already. But like with episode 2, they just kept hammering it home, like moment after moment, and it was just really clumsy. And I wish they hadn't done it because it started to put me off. Bruce Vile says, have you been to County Donegal, Ireland, in Ulster, but not Northern Ireland, lad? Red Branch Knights area, your books aren't bad. Cheers, man. I've been to Dublin, but yeah, I've not gone to Northern Ireland so far, which is stupid because it's not fucking far away from me. But I just never had the opportunity to go there, really. But Dublin was a fucking fantastic night out. Love the drinking there, love the pubs, love the people. It was great. What's the next one here? Galos says, any interest in Dune or Avatar 2? I've got no interest in Avatar 2. Like, that ship has sailed. Dune I'm still interested in. It's obviously been delayed. I just want to see a faithful adaptation of the book, man. That's all I'm asking. What's the next one? Azzy42 says, the 13th Warrior is based off the book by Michael Crichton, Eaters of the Dead. Yeah, that's what I said to Sargon earlier. The book is a retelling of Beowulf and also incorporated a character that was inspired by the historical person that Sargon mentioned. Ah, okay. So it's an amalgamation of all these different myths and legends and stuff. Chris Without H says, Drinker, if you had a choice between fighting one feminist-sized duck or 20 duck-sized feminists, what would you choose? Right, okay, so the average feminist weighs about a metric ton. That's a hell of a big duck. I wouldn't want to fight that because that beak's going to be terrifying. So I would go for 20 duck-sized feminists. I reckon I could beat them down through size. But yeah, it would be a tough fight, but I think I'm up for it. Wes Anderade says, will you be reviewing or making a video on Godzilla vs. Kong? Yeah, I will actually, because I did the trailer, so I feel like I owe it to the movie to at least watch it. Damn. Neek247 says, do you think they will delay Black Widow again? No, I think by July they'll have things open. So yeah, I would imagine it will come out then. They can't delay it any longer because no one's even going to remember what the fuck it is by that point. Even by this point, she's ridiculously outdated as a character. She's already died in Endgame. I think the movie's probably going to be shit, but I think it will still do well financially. So we will see. But I'll review it either way. Cool. I think I've got to the end of the super chats. I think I've made it. I'm sorry Sargon couldn't quite make it to the end, but he had to go piss because he's weak. He doesn't just piss in his seat like I do. But either way, I hope that everyone who's tuned in tonight has enjoyed this stream. I know it's been a bit different from normal. I don't normally do Disney movies like this, but man, it was an interesting chat all the same. And I want to say thanks to everyone who's donated super chats. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone in chat themselves who's tuned in. It's been awesome to have you all here. I hope you've enjoyed the stream. And yeah, that brings me to the end of it. So I'm going to go away and pass out now. So that is all I've got for today. So I'm going to go away now.